Okay, thank you, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to the the July 22nd Planning Commission Board of Adjustment hearing. If you would give me a moment, please, I will read through the meeting procedure before we start the meeting. All persons in attendance at the Planning Commission Board of Adjustment, the PCBOA, meetings are expected to comply with the following meeting procedure. Thank you in advance for help making this a manageable meeting. Copies of agenda item materials are available for public viewing on the table located at the back of the meeting room. These materials are not to leave the table so that others in attendance may also view them. Please turn your phones to vibrate or off during the meeting and conduct any sidebar conversations outside of the meeting room. Interruption or other interference with the orderly conduct of the PCBOA meeting will not be allowed. Defamatory or abusive remarks are always out of order. Disruptive persons will be removed from the meeting. The chair may terminate a speaker's privilege of address if, after being called to order, the speaker persists in improper conduct or remarks. Written material concerning the agenda items must be submitted to the Environmental Services Department by 3:30 p.m. on the Wednesday immediately prior to the meeting date. Written materials will not be accepted after this deadline or at the meeting because the Planning Commission Board of Adjustment will not have sufficient time to review them prior to the meeting. Such materials must state the agenda item for which it is being submitted and the name and address of the submitting party. Planning Commission business is conducted first, followed by the Board of Adjustment business. The chair will call the meeting to order and explain the meeting procedure. The chair will read each agenda item into the record and ask the applicants to come forward to the presenter's table, state his, her, or their names and address for the record, and explain his, her, or their request. The Planning Commission Board of Adjustment will then discuss the agenda item with the applicant. The chair will then ask for public comment on the agenda item. To facilitate an orderly, efficient meeting, there is a 3-minute speaking time limit per speaker per agenda item unless the chair allows a speaker additional time. The chair may terminate the speaker's privilege of address if, after being called to order, the speaker persists in improper conduct or remarks. When the chair recognizes a speaker, she or he may approach the audience, podium, and microphone, state his or her name and address for the record, and write such on the speaker log, and then share his or her comments. The audience podium microphone must be used by the recognized speaker because the meeting is recorded. A member of the public may not donate his or her speaking time to another speaker. A speaker should state his or her comments and address the issue, not the applicant's. All comments are to be directed towards the PCBOA. Please do not repeat comments already made by previous speakers. The chair reserves the right to ask a group with similar comments to appoint a spokesperson. If written comments have been submitted to the PCBOA, please do not read them aloud during the meeting as they are already a part of the record and copies thereof have been given to the PCBOA. After everyone wanting to speak on an agenda item has done so, the chair will close the public comment period on the agenda item, and no further public comment will be taken after this point. The chair will give the applicant an opportunity to address issues raised during public comment. The PCBOA will then continue its discussion on the agenda item and the chair will entertain a motion on it. The PCBOA may make a motion to pass, deny, or table the item. Once a motion is made and seconded, the PCBOA will develop findings of facts for conditional use permits and variance applications, and then vote on the motion. Once a vote is taken on an agenda item, the PCBOA will move on to the next agenda item. Meetings commence at 6 p.m. and continue until all agenda items have been heard or until 10 p.m. No new agenda items shall be considered after 9:45. The PCBOA may, at its discretion, continue an item that is on the floor at 10 p.m., but any remaining agenda items shall be continued to another date and time, preferably the immediately following Tuesday at 6 p.m., and no further public comments will be provided for such a meeting continuation. The PCBOA, through the chair, may modify these procedures prior to a meeting or an agenda item. Okay. All right. First thing is the Planning Commission. We don't have any minutes to approve, and we don't have any old business, so we'll move right into the new business with conditional use permit amendment application 4CU-24 by Michel Solien, parts of government lots 3 and 4, section 8, Township 141, range 34, Lake Emma Township on Pickerel Lake, a recreational development lake, parcel 16.08.00710. The applicant is requesting to amend condition number 9 of the conditional use permit 3CU 23. Do we have Mr. Solien available? Thank you, Mr. Solien. If you could, please, for the record, state your name and address.
Michael Solien, 25848 Holly Road, Park Rapids, Minnesota.
A little bit closer. Thank you.
Michael Solien, 25848 Holly Road, Park Rapids, Minnesota.
Okay, thank you very much. And you can go ahead and give us a little rundown of your plan here.
Yes, looking to amend the CUP condition number 9 to allow a new proposed area for a septic system, one that would be a central design servicing the campground. Initially starting off with the west side and then allowing expansion for the entire campground in a, when data comes available for actual use. So the previous system, when I had professionals look at the design and looking to get bids and things like that, some information came up and some challenges were identified, and underneath the current CUP doesn't really allow for that north system to be installed. There's some hurdles there, so with the professionals recommending moving it to a different location and centralizing it, better design, just more practical from an installation standpoint. A lot of that's in there, and also the kind of giving a general time frame of when I'd be looking to generally bring sites on and the cabin and things like that as well. Gives some of the design numbers for the initial installation. And then, as I mentioned before, we would be using actual data being collected from the system to then identify what parts would be bring online, and supported that through the water meters and also the event timers on the septic system to ensure that there's more than enough capacity to bring them on.
Okay, thank you. I just want to state for the record also, just to be clear, the request to amend the condition number 9 of the CUP 1 CU 24 states that the 2 proposed subsurface sewage treatment systems to service the RV campground must be installed per the submitted designs and pass inspection, and before the CUP operating permit can be issued, and that's what we're changing here, so, or requesting the change. So, anybody have any questions at this time?
This is Ken. The drawing that we have, is that now the official document that defines what the full plan is for the campground? With the 39 sites he's provided, does that replace the older one that had like 48 sites on it now? Is that what becomes the official record?
Eric speaking. The drawing that's in the application only depicts the proposed layout of the septic system. The number of sites that were approved hasn't changed, and he's not asking for any modifications to that.
Had it been previously been cut back?
It's always been 39.
Oh,
so we're
okay.
good.
When they did the CUP, okay.
Yeah, nothing has changed as far as the RV sites, just the septic is the request. I see you have your septic
Yes.
designer here. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Jody Elanimi, 26299 Eagle Bay Road, Osage, Minnesota.
Okay, thank you. I know we've received information from you for the septic. You gave us lots of information during the lot views. Have you submitted an actual design?
It is being designed by Dave Larson. He's a soil scientist with Larson Environmental,
Okay,
and he is currently working on that to get it up for us.
Okay.
I did say that, I did tell you guys out there that he had agreed with the tank volumes and everything. So he's working on putting it all together for the mounds and flows.
do you by chance have a date possibly when this design would be completed?
When I hit him up the other day, he said he was gonna work on it last weekend, and I haven't heard from him. And he's
So
really
relatively
busy.
soon then?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
As I was reviewing the application and stuff, I noted that the shower house, it wasn't mentioned in your narrative, but looking at it now, water's coming out, but there's no, or water's coming from the well, but you're no longer doing a shower house.
It's mechanical and storage.
So, right, so the shower house and bathroom is not at this time.
It's recommended to kind of stay away from that just due to the amount of usage that that can generate. And then
Okay.
also with the dump station, what kind of challenges and issues that could come up from that. So that's why with the campground, moving everything to full hookups.
Perfect. And to my calculations, you now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lift stations proposed throughout the entire thing. Is that correct?
I'd have to defer to Jody.
I believe it is. I can't see your
We have
map.
A, B, C, D, E, F, and G.
Yeah, A would go to a lift station. B would go to a lift station. C would go to a lift station. D and E, D I believe is the upper one on the right. It goes to a lift station.
And E goes,
E goes down by the cabin and into
Correct.
that lift station, and F goes down to that lift station.
okay, yep, okay, that's what I have here too. And every single lift station you have designed for, you're also going to have the event counters.
Yes.
I'll defer to Jody on the design part of
Okay.
it.
I needed to get clarification from you, Mr. Solien. I thought I saw 2 different numbers for the cabin on bedrooms. I believe I saw one that said 2 bedrooms, and then this last one said 3.
It's designed, it's a 2-bedroom with loft space above, so we wanted to make sure there was enough capacity to it. That's why you see the flow design for 3.
Okay, that was what I needed clarification for, was that the flow design is for 3.
A question, is the future home tied into this, the overall system?
No, the home will likely be on its own system.
It will be a separate system
That's the plan,
when the home gets built?
correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Ken. I had that same question written down. Okay, does anybody else have any questions at this time?
I just have one, maybe it comes up later. As part of this condition, do we void the variance for the drain field that was down by the lake? Does that get automatically voided, or is that variance still there?
The variance would be valid for 5 years, but there's no need of utilizing that if this is approved.
Of doing anything? Okay.
Okay, if we don't have any other questions from the board members, I'm going to open for public comment. Okay, I'm going to open for public comments. We have, all right. Please state your name and address and then write it in the log. I appreciate that.
Karen Tim, 18576 Hideaway Drive. This amendment to Condition 9 is incomplete and raises a lot of questions. Why wasn't the full septic system plan submitted with the amendment? I really feel that to approve this before everything is turned in is wrong. Now he's planning all full hookups. That wasn't the original plan, so he's changed more than just Condition 9. Why does the drawing of the dock system still show 21 boat slips when Condition 3 set a limit of 8? The CUP application listed the cabin, shower house, and waterfront recreation shed constructed at onset of the campground and the owner's residence in 2027. I recall discussion about whether or not the shower house could be double as a storm shelter. Mr. Solien stated that his family would be living in the cabin initially. Condition number 2 only lists a 1,500 square foot cabin and 1,500 square foot owner's residence in the CUP approval letter. Why weren't the shower house and the waterfront recreation area shed listed in this CUP letter? If condition 9 is the only part this amendment addresses, then shouldn't all of the structures that were referenced in the CUP in January be required at onset of the campground? Or is this going to be a self-serve campground with little or no supervision? Because of these questions and incomplete septic system information, I am requesting the board require this amendment be resubmitted with complete septic system plans, and all structures that were approved in January should be constructed in phase 1, so a manager is on premises to monitor and enforce all conditions of the CUP.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Tim. Anybody else up for public comment?
Thank you. Here we are again, another change to this plan, and last year we've seen several changes. I would, even though I am very much in favor of moving the septic draining field farther away from the lake, I think that's what the residents asked for to start with. At this point, without an approved septic design, I believe the application is incomplete. And my quick reading of the Hubbard County rules, it should be posted before it's acted on by this board. So I would respectfully ask you to defer this ruling until you have the approved septic design. Thank you.
Okay, wait, can you please state your name and
Yes, Kurt
address?
Sale, 17682 Happy Drive. Did I forget that?
Yes, sir, thank you very much.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Anybody else for public comment? Okay, please state your name and address for the record before beginning.
It's Teresa Zollinger, and it's 18298 Hannah Lane. Anyway, good evening, you all. I request to deny this to the condition number 9. The CUP has been approved as written. The changes being requested are open-ended and very misleading. The change to the septic system is not realistic because it is based on cost to install and not as stated in the staff report on grading and elevation plans. It was mentioned at last meeting that he could not afford the 2 septics that were approved and granted for the CUP. So now the application searches for a lower cost septic system to put on our lake and only put on 1 system, which is good, and further back as a stage development. I have no problem with that, which the same thing he asked for last time, and it was denied by the Board of Commissioners. We need to look at the big picture and why this will not work. A new CUP should be required. The CUP was granted based on the septic system designer. Start over. He has been trying to add all sites to 1 septic. Nobody has seen a design, nor the level of the designer is not listed. We haven't seen anything, so we shouldn't be voting on anything that is not able to be reviewed by all of us as the public. No mention of a septic dump station, which you guys mentioned, nor for the house, nor for the shower house, and that should be required in a RV park. A shower house should be there with facilities. The staff report mentions that Northland Septic's design would not meet the requirements, which was approved by a variance. In the staff report, it states that the system to service the campground were not realistically being installed because the designs did not work with the engineered grading elevation plans for the campground. I think the written report of this needs should be shown to us. The applicant stated he couldn't afford the septic, so that is why he sought another septic designer. A comparison of the credentials of the people that are doing this design, I think to be fair to the Northland Septics, should be searched out. Because it's not right that we take and have another septic designer come in when we've all done all this work to get the approval for the variances and everything else on this RV park. The CUP should be required to start over again, and this part of it should be denied. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. Okay, please state your name and address.
Mary Griebler, 18593 Ithaca Drive.
Thank you, Ms. Griebler. You may
Okay,
proceed.
almost a year ago, we were here for a variance application regarding the septic for a proposed campground, and the staff report recommended against approving the variance as there was sufficient room elsewhere to place the drain fields. The variance got approved. The application was submitted with a professional septic design, professional layouts for the proposed campsites, professional engineering reports. This presented the impression that the applicant has done his homework and that he was ready to proceed. The board believed that this campground would bring tourists to Park Rapids, and since tourists are an important part of our economy, that this would be a good thing. Now we're here to look at a proposed amendment to Condition 9. It turns out the variance was not needed after all. This application shows that the applicant was far from prepared and wants years to build it out. That the applicant will most likely not be on site to manage the campground, that he intends to change the septic design, which called for a mix of sewered, unsewered, and primitive sites. He would like to degrade the septic design to the minimum standard by attempting to use flow measurements. Personally, I'm not sure how you can get reliable average flows for a new business, an inexperienced owner, and no published business plan. And what I take away from everything I saw in the application is that if something's not spelled out in the conditions, the applicant is not going to honor the assumptions that we made during the CUP process. If all the sites are changed to sewered, I would be interested in knowing how this is going to impact the type of tourists that use the campground. There's nothing in the conditions about how the applicant will market, manage, or operate it. If there's a high percentage of seasonal leases, I tend to agree with the letter that was sent in to the Park Rapids Enterprise last fall, where the writer said that the weekenders are going to buy their booze and their food back home, and they'll just come up here to party. It's not going to make any tourist revenue for Park Rapids. That also what makes me wonder a couple of other things. I mean, if campsites are mostly occupied by seasonal weekenders, does this put more upward pressure on the lake than if the guests were more transient? Are there any studies that say what type of tourist generates more revenue? Has there ever been a cost-benefit analysis done on what type of impact this has on revenue? I mean, lake campgrounds on revenue. Do short-term tourists generate more revenue? I do like the septic location, but I'm very uncomfortable with the changes that come with the proposed amendment, and I'd like to see this denied. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Griebler. Anyone else have public comment? Okay, it appears no further public comment, so I will close public comment at this time. Okay, just for a recap, today's amendment strictly is for the septic system condition number 9 only. Other items that were mentioned with boat slips and other items that they had talked about with the full RV hookups and such, that should have been discussed and brought to attention at the prior meeting. But that is in the past now, so we're moving forward with the number 9 condition or amendment only. This, again, for the record, this application for this amendment has the septic to where it meets the CUP criteria and complies with the ordinance's requirement that the central SSTS is one central unit, no longer 2 units, was strictly what the variance was to begin with, was to do 2 units. So this would be very helpful in that situation, moving that septic system further from the lake and further away from the wetlands. Septic for the residential house does not need to be included in the RV park. And same with the shower house. To my knowledge, the applicant is not required to have a shower house or a bathroom on the RV park. Do you have any comments towards that, Mr. Solien? Is that the information you've been given?
That's accurate. State of Minnesota doesn't require that
Okay.
unless you have sites that are not full hookups.
Okay, so with all full hookups, you are not required to have the shower house and bathroom. You have already stated for yourself that you are not going to do the dump station. That will definitely reduce any of that waste. Okay, do we have any other comments or questions from the staff here?
This is Mike. It was brought up about the final plan from Larson's not been submitted, but yet, if my understanding is correct, that has to be submitted to environmental services and approved prior to anything beginning. And then after it's completed, an inspection is done to make sure it's done according to the plans. So that plan would be available for review for the public once it's submitted to your office? That's correct? Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
This is Ken. If I understand, the 39 sites that you now have, though, you intend those all to be permanent sites, no transient camping sites?
They would all have septic hookups that when they get brought online.
Speak to
Someone
this.
who,
What?
they would all have septic, availability to septic.
All have septic. But there may be weekenders who come with a camper that ties into it.
Yes, they can.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question for septic. With this design that's in place, is there room for expansion if needed to accommodate all units, the cabin and the cabin? There's room
Yes.
for expansion.
Yeah, on Hill, there's room for, the tankage is all there for every site.
Perfect.
The tankage is all there, and up on the hill, there's plenty of room for mounds.
Okay.
This is Tim speaking. Jody, for your design, what you're gonna bring online for the initial phase adds up to 2,850 gallons a day. So you'll have 350 gallons per day flexibility, and then you'll be monitoring flows.
Yes, sir.
And how will the flows be monitored to know the peak flow?
In order to monitor the flows, Mike is gonna have to read the water meters.
At what times?
If it's a slow week, I would advise him to read the water meters Friday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. Go through the weekend, go through the park, count how many campers are full, how many people are there. And then on Monday morning, after everybody's gone, read the flows again at 7 in the morning. And then you can get a pretty good idea for what your flows are, and if there's any questions, Tim, it can be read 7 in the morning on Saturday morning, or Friday morning, 7 in the morning, Saturday morning, and 7 in the morning, Sunday morning, when he first starts up, and then you're gonna get a everyday flow. If we think there's a discrepancy in that flow number, then we can go to our lift stations and count our events, and we'll have calculated how much water is gonna be pumped out of each tank each time. And we can count our events and should be able to true it up.
Okay, and Mike, if you're not there, do you have something planned to read them meters?
Yeah, I'll have some cameras on the meters.
Okay, you'll have cameras on the meters?
Yep, or I'll have someone else do the reading if I'm not able to do it. So there'll be a way to make sure that there's a reading taken one way or another.
Thank you.
Just for clarification, Mr. Solien, your first proposal for Group 1 is strictly the campsites 1 through 24, is that correct?
Correct.
And not the cabin?
Not initially.
Okay.
But the cabin is built into that number from the initial plan design.
So basically, the information that I need from you then is the cabin going to be included in that flow, that metered flow data? If it's gonna be built at the same time frame, or, I mean, you can put a different, I mean, obviously it can go to a different lift station, so it can have a different flow meter. Am I correct? Or
Yeah,
no?
there should be a flow meter. The cabin and one site, we're gonna be deep water lines, so they can be used in the wintertime, and
Okay.
those are on their own meter.
They can be on their own
They
meter?
can be on their own meter,
Okay.
or there can be a meter in the cabin itself.
Okay.
The cabin won't exist during the initial phase, so when you're doing your monitoring of the 24.
No, sir, but the tanks, in the next phase, the tanks that collect the cabin need to go in first, because all the rest of the ones on the hill all feed down into that lift station by the cabin.
And the initial phase is sized for the cabin, including the cabin, if I recall. Even though it's not built initially, your initial 24 includes also an estimate for the cabin size.
450 gallons in the design that's for the cabin.
Yeah.
It's called out in the application.
Okay.
The cabin's 450 gallons, that's 3 bedrooms. Right.
It's designed at 3 bedrooms.
Well, this is Veronica speaking. This information provided with the new septic design, eliminating the drain field at the, within that 100 or 150-foot setback by the lake, seems to be very, a move in the positive direction. Mr. Yelenimi, do you want to explain to us for the record why, in your eyes, the first system wasn't going to work because of the excavation and such, and how the tanks were gonna be too deep?
The pipe that's laid out there is set up to be, all your sewer pipe has to flow at 2%. Since the state of Minnesota adopted the universal plumbing code, you can't flow at 1%. On the old plumbing code, you could flow at 1%. So if you're gonna flow at 1%, you have to get with the state of Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry and get permission, and tell him why you want to flow at 1%. If you flow at 1% and the plumbing inspector catches it, he just doesn't accept it, you redig. So it flows at 2%. There is the bottom line in ABC that was originally supposed to go down and get collected by the cabin and then go down to the mounds by the wetland. That particular piece of pipe is 574 feet long. 574 feet is right around 11 feet of drop at 2%. If you have 11 foot of hill on a graded site to where you can start out a foot in the ground on this end, go 574 feet away, and if you're 11 foot difference, then you're gonna be a foot in the ground all the way. If that's flat or relatively flat, as you're going, you just keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper, and you never daylight out of the hill. So feasibly, even if there's enough hill drop in there to get 3 feet of that, which would put you at 8 feet deep, by the time you get to the bottom of the septic tank, you're at 13 and a half, 14 feet. I'm pretty sure by that wetland down there, your water table your tanks are floating.
And this is Veronica, another question then. How deep can the tanks go?
7 feet without being reinforced covers. You can reinforce covers and put them deeper if you would like, but putting them deeper, you can't clean them out. You're in a 24-inch tube trying to make sure you can get a septic tank cleaned out, and it just doesn't work.
So this eliminates the problematic situation that
Yep.
could have happened that other route. Okay, thank you. Mr. Solien, I would suggest, since you've already stated some items in your application, some sub-conditions if we were to move forward with this. Obviously, number 1A would be the flow meter must be installed as described. Per the septic rules for the group 1, the 24 campsites and the 3-bedroom cabin, and the data from the event counters at each lift station must be recorded as well for that operational season 2025. The second one, I believe that same information, the flow meter data must be recorded and submitted for each season prior to the next septic phase that you go through, just so that the environmental services could have that information. And then, obviously, if approved, then the amendment, condition number 9 of the variance 30-B23 becomes null and void.
Do those become additional conditions or sub-conditions under?
Sub-conditions only under this number 9.
Yeah, okay.
Correct.
So that if we adopt a new 9, then those conditions would be sub-conditions under it?
For
Okay.
it, correct, yep,
They're per his submitted plan.
correct. They're pretty much everything you said that you would put in there as far as, except for the one that I'm requesting that you do for each phase. Keeping that log of information. You have, like I mentioned, 6 or 7 lifts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're gonna have 7 altogether. You planned on putting cameras in and flow meters in. You did not talk about putting the flow meter in on the cabin, because you said that was a deeper well, but that one could be in place as well.
Yeah, we can put a water meter on that.
Okay,
In regards to the reporting part, I have no issues with collecting the data and doing that as we need to, as we, add on and go on, but at some point when it's no longer needed, I can cease to
absolutely. Yep, I believe once all of your systems come in, then environmental services may not need that information anymore. I mean, if all sites are in and everything is compliant with the septic outcome, there would be no longer flow meter readings needed, or what would your recommendation be?
If everything's ultimately built out,
As described.
not really necessary, other than keeping an eye on that would still help you make sure the system's operating properly and that you don't have a leak somewhere or abuse by somebody. And it's always good to have that information, keep it going, because you never know when the rules are gonna change, or you're gonna need to do something to the system, and then having that data in a current state, could prove helpful with, sizing a system if you ever have to replace it years from now.
I'll still be looking at monitoring, but I'm just saying from the requirement of reporting it to the environmental services on. it's
Right,
not
I
In
would
perpetuity, it's from you expand and meeting those requirements.
Right, yep. As far as the expansion goes, until you get all of your units in, that's what I would suggest as far as that goes.
Makes sense.
As Eric had stated, that's something that you obviously want to continue monitoring. And then also, because if they ever wanted, like you said, if septic changes, whatever, and you have that documentation on hand, then you could say, oh, well, we're still meeting this, you know, you haven't exceeded or you're under.
Right.
So it's very beneficial for you to retain that. Anybody else have any questions or comments on those sub-conditions?
Could you restate them before we
Sure.
make any kind of motion?
Yep, so the first one I had that the flow meter must be installed as described in the condition amendment application per the SSTS rules for the group 1, 24 campsites in the 3-bedroom cabin, and the data from the event counters at each lift station must also be recorded for the operational season of 2025. And then I would like flow meter data must be recorded and submitted for each operational season prior to the next phase. So after, you know, even after he gets this first set done for 2025, and gets that next one in, that next one would be beneficial to have all of it before that last one, or however it goes. But that's just my thought.
Okay.
And then if approved, then if we're approving the amended condition number 9, then the variance 30-V-23 becomes null and void, as the RV campground will meet the centralized SSTS requirements, whether it has the phased approach or not, with one centralized unit. I think also, as we mentioned, since we have not actually seen the design, even though we have all the numbers, I think if, again, maybe the last one before it goes, if anything goes forward, then the design by Mr. Larson be submitted as well prior to, that can be, that's a given pretty much.
Just for clarity, for sure for me, this is for CU 24. It only applies to condition 9, and all the previous 8 conditions from, I think, 1 CU 24 remain in effect.
That is correct.
Okay, so the issue about docks and stuff, that's all covered in those conditions, and dictated by those conditions in that CUP.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay.
Anybody have any other findings of fact to add to the 3 that the staff has provided?
No, I think I covered, I had the question, the variance. We got new drawings, yes. And the shower house is not an issue.
Correct, the shower house is not an issue.
Okay.
Okay, is anybody prepared to make a motion?
This is Mike. I'll make the motion that we recommend to the county commissioners that this be approved as written and with the conditions that were brought forth prior to this. And we accept the staff findings of fact.
Okay, does anyone have a second?
This is Ken, I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion to recommend approval to the Hubbard County Board of Commissioners to approve the amended condition number 9, seconded by Ken, with the 4 sub-conditions added to the amended condition number 9. Tim, how do you vote?
This is Tim, I vote aye.
Ken, how do you vote?
This is Ken, I vote aye.
Larry, how do you vote?
This is Larry, I vote aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Mike, I vote aye.
And this is Veronica, I vote aye. Mr. Solien, you'll get a letter from the Environmental Services Office stating what the items that you need before the next step. Be sure to get that design submitted as well. All right?
All right,
Yes,
thank you.
thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Board of Adjustment. And we have approval of the June 24th, 2024 meeting minutes. Anybody have any comments on the minutes, if there's any corrections needed? If not, anybody care to make a motion?
This is Ken, I'll make a motion, we accept the planning, our Board of Adjustment minutes from the June meeting.
This is Larry, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Ken and a second by Larry to approve the meeting minutes as presented. Tim, how do you vote?
This is Tim, I vote aye.
Ken, how do you vote?
This is Ken, I vote aye.
Larry, how do you vote?
Larry, I vote aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
This is Mike, I vote aye.
And this is Veronica, I vote aye. The minutes have been approved. Okay, we have old business up next. Variance application 29-B-24 by Laurie Koehly, part of Government Lot 8, Section 22, Township 141, Range 33, Mantrap Township on Spider Lake, a recreational development lake, parcel 20.22.02200. The applicant is requesting a variance from Section 702 of the Shoreland Management Ordinance for a proposed expansion of a non-conforming residence located in the shore impact zone. Do we have the applicant available? Okay, I do not see the applicant. Just for the record, this application was originally on the June meeting agenda on the June lot view day prior to the scheduled lot view time. The applicant withdrew the application, so the board did not conduct a lot view on the property. Then on the morning of the June meeting day, the applicant canceled the application withdrawal and resubmitted the application, which changed the application date to today. So the members, would you like to continue without the applicant on this, or would you like to table it for the applicant to be present, if you have any questions?
This is Ken. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, except that I believe there's one open question for us, and that is, does she intend to try to replace the deck that's being replaced by this addition? And without the person here to talk to that, I don't know whether we can process it.
Sure. And this is Veronica speaking. The other question, I did have a couple other questions regarding the height of structure, as the application states it was going to be built like on the deck. So with a 12-foot height, so I didn't know where that 12-foot was coming from, the ground level or the deck level. Anybody else?
Yeah, we wanted conditions for gutters.
Right. And if they had any other future plans for that deck. So, do we have a time frame? Since the new application date started again on June 24th, we have a little time that we could table it for next month. However, I don't know if that's gonna change.
This is Mike. I would be in favor of tabling this, and we always have that option if the questions that we have are not answered to deny to meet our timeframes or move on without it. But I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay, I'm gonna ask Eric one quick question. If, it can wait till next time. That'll be fine. Tabling is great.
This is Mike. I make the motion that we table this variance application.
Is the August meeting the last time that fits into the allowable time that we have?
No, that would fall within the initial 60 days, but given the board's motion on the floor to table, if that goes through, our standard practice is to extend the review period, the full 120 days available, so we'd have another couple months if
Even
necessary.
into September then? Okay,
I'll second it.
yeah, go ahead.
This is Tim. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mike to table the application for the applicant to be here. A second by Tim. Tim, how do you vote?
This is Tim. I vote aye.
Ken, how do you vote?
This can I vote aye?
Mike, how do you vote?
It's Mike. I vote aye.
Larry, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
And this is Veronica. I vote aye to table the application.
Waste of time.
Okay, next item up, variance application 30-B-24 by Stephen Hulbert, part of Government Lot 2, Section 28, Township 140, Range 34, Henrietta Township on Long Lake, a recreational development lake. Parcel 13.28.00600, the applicant is requesting a variance from Article B and Section 501.2, 1001, 1003, and 1005 of the Shoreland Management Ordinance and Section 4. Subdivision A1C and the subdivision ordinance to create a riparian lot that doesn't comply with the 150-foot minimum lot width requirement at the ordinary high water mark or at the 100-foot ordinary high water mark setback, and request a variance from the 33-foot minimum width ingress, egress, easement, access requirement. Okay, please go ahead and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. This is Sarah Swanson. I'm the attorney for Steve Hulbert, the property owner. Rather than sort of launch into the points that we made last time about the application, I guess I would just, of course, if there are any questions, please let us know, but just ask that you would disregard the old surveys that had been submitted prior to this Matt Murray survey that we now have and reviewed out at the property. I do believe that with this survey, you're able to see all of the requirements for a subdivision. And also particularly, we are now able to verify that the lot width at the ordinary high water mark is over 150 feet. So I think I'm correct in stating that we do not need to request a variance for that issue. We do, however, still need the variance for the 150-foot width at the structure setback and the 33-foot easement, ingress egress easement. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, and I believe you're right, that it does say now, I just had to read that for the whole agenda thing, but yeah, it does say now that this lot does meet the 150-foot lot width at the ordinary high water mark, but still not the other side at the ordinary high water mark, so thank you for the clarification.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mike, go ahead.
I have a question. What is the lot width at the structure setback?
I believe Eric was able to measure that, and it's approximately 128 feet.
Thank you.
Thank you. This, as we talked about, I think, at the last meeting and when we were out there, the unique nature of kind of this peninsula or little point is what creates sort of the challenging way of measuring the lot width. Of course, the lot has plenty of width in other places on the lot.
Do any other members have any questions?
Yeah, this is Ken. The cabin, main home, how many bedrooms are in it?
Which,
The main cabin, how many bedrooms?
one,
What?
one,
One? And the two guest cabin structures, how many bedrooms in those?
one of each.
One each, okay. And you proposed, the parcel B, you're proposing potentially to build two structures with a total of 8 bedrooms.
We don't have we haven't designed anything besides the initial,
With the information I had, that was, I think, from the staff report, that's what was stated.
I think that's what was provided, or that's what the septic was designed to accommodate.
Okay, there's room for a septic system and a second drain field for up to 8 bedrooms.
yeah, that's where that would have come from, but that sounds like a lot, but the building that we want to,
Speak to the microphone,
I'm
please.
sorry, the building that we want to begin with will have 3 bedrooms.
Okay.
And that would be considered the home bedroom for that plat. And in the future, perhaps, might want to request a 700
Okay.
square foot, I don't know that. Hope I'm alive to see that.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
could we ask Mr. Hulbert to state his name and address for the record, please?
My name is Steve Hulbert. I live in Horace, North Dakota. Do you need the address? It's in the country, 7010 52nd Avenue South, Horace.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have questions at this time? Otherwise, I'm going to open for public comment. Okay, I'm going to open for public comment. And seeing none, I will close public comment. This is Veronica speaking. I had similar questions for the applicant as well for the septic for the non-riparian lot showing the 8 bedrooms. So you mentioned they're going to have a regular size home and then possibly a guest cottage. Okay.
Perhaps, yeah.
Because I don't believe, and that's what something you would have to clarify with environmental services, is I don't believe that that parcel could have anything larger than 1 residential unit and 1 guest cottage. I do not think it meets the criteria for like a duplex as far as sizing goes, but then again, that's where you would want to contact the ESO.
Correct. That's our understanding as well.
Okay, just guest cottage sizing and the residential, okay?
Just for clarification, that parcel B could have 2 structures, but one would have to be designated as a guest cabin with the 700 square foot constraint on it.
That
Is
is,
that, yeah, okay,
it's not large enough to have anything bigger.
yeah. We still asking questions?
Yes.
I notice on your drawing, in the remainder lot, there are 3 sheds down by the lake. Can you give me a feel for the size of those and what they're used for?
Matt called them sheds. They've been there since we acquired them. They are a dressing room.
A
little-
dressing room.
Changing
A place to
rooms.
change your suit.
Okay, how large are they?
Well, the largest one is 6 or 7 feet by 4.
Okay,
And this other one is about 2/3 of that size. It's a
Okay.
one-person type of,
Do you store water-related equipment in there? Like
no.
boat paddles or life jackets, or are they used for any water-related,
Well, yes, I'm sure they do. They hang there. One is where the girls use and one is where the guys use. I mean, I'm not sure how they designed them way back. That was 40 years ago. But they do. They'll go in and change clothes, hang it up, and then probably put on their life jacket if they wear one. Most of them do not. They just jump in.
the other additional question I have is you have a fairly elaborate dock system right off the point,
Yes,
but you also have a dock and access area by shed one here, I think, or this, what is here.
yes.
What do you use that for?
The shed or the dock?
Well, yeah, that access area.
Well, that's been there since. That was where the original owner had a fishing boat there, and we just keep it. It's there, but the access to the lake there is not good. It's only a few inches deep at that point, and so, but we just haven't, there's a fishing boat there,
Okay.
and we just continue to use
My
it.
line of question is the fact that you're typically allowed only one dock area or access area on the lake, and I think our shoreline management ordinance allows you one shed
Okay,
in the shore impact zone or close to the lake. So I see those 3 sheds and 2 dock areas as being inconsistent with what our shoreline management ordinance is. And I
Okay.
think, Eric, your staff is looking at the fact that there are 2 guest cabins when there's only 1 allowed. You're reviewing that will have to be taken care of. Okay.
are you talking about the docks, the extra dock, or the, when you just said what has to be taken care of? Which? Both?
I don't understand your question. I would just say, I was asking those questions and then making the statement as to what I believe the shoreline management ordinance and/or DNR requirements are. So-
Well, to be honest, we could do without that extra dock, but it's just there and been there. So we can continue to use it.
Doesn't make it conforming just because it's
Yeah.
there. So,
Well,
okay, I got a question.
So
I just think what my colleague was just trying to get at is that maybe any violations that are on the property now will be brought to your attention anytime, or already has been, so.
yes,
I do have some statements, supporting statements, because I am in favor with this new survey being provided. I'm in favor of the application. Just for the record, I wanted to state that the application was first considered at the June meeting and tabled for the applicant. So directed to provide a new certificate of survey prepared by a different Minnesota licensed surveyor that showed the locations and identified the alternate drain field sites on both proposed tracks, and that is what happened. This new survey, the proposed riparian lot still doesn't meet the 150-foot lot width requirement at the 100-foot ordinary high watermark structure setback. However, it does meet the 150-foot lot width requirement at the ordinary high watermark. The lot area and buildable area figures are reduced, but they still meet the minimum requirements. The proposed septic drain field alternate site was flagged by the designer, and they tied that flagged alternate site into the survey so we could see. Even though the boundary line between the riparian and non-riparian lot had to be moved slightly to keep that alternate site entirely on the riparian lot. The alternate site doesn't meet the 10-foot setback from the proposed riparian lot line, but the shoreline management ordinance allows it to encroach into that 10-foot setback because we've got this boundary line surveyed. So there was a win, an extra plus. Also, with that existing driveway over which the proposed new division boundary line runs, again, this line is at the rear lot line for both the riparian and non-riparian lots, and the shoreline management ordinance exempts those driveways from having to meet that 10-foot rear lot line setback. So again, it's a unique situation here, makes that portion compliant. So lots of extra positives for this subdivision request. If anybody has any other questions or comments, otherwise,
This is, Ken, your comments basically that the new layout survey has corrected the issues we had the last time with the drain field, second drain field. And that the two residual nonconformances are the lot width. And I think if I remember from the first time around on this, the road easement coming in that requires 33 feet, there's no way around that. So this variance would include us accepting the fact that they do not have to meet the 33-foot easement coming in. So that's also part of the variance that we're doing.
correct.
Okay, and my third issue, just in summary, is the multiple number of non-conformances that I personally would like to see corrected if we're gonna move on this, so.
Yep,
okay.
so this is Veronica speaking. If this moves forward with approval, any violations that the Environmental Services finds on there have to be corrected before the subdivision can actually take place, correct?
If they're identified and communicated prior to the application being submitted.
Okay,
I personally am going to lobby for the fact that a condition be that second boat dock, access point, and shed location be removed, and any shoreland line there be revegetated such that that is not an access point.
okay.
It doesn't really matter that much.
Anybody else have any questions or comments on Ken's condition that little accent on the rear end, on the other side of the peninsula there?
Yeah, if I may, I would advise against that due to the fact I don't feel there's a sufficient nexus
Okay.
to the proposed condition to what's being requested in the variance.
I can,
Yep, he would be, not advise us to place a condition on that because it doesn't really go with the actual request for the variance of the subdivision. That would be a nexus.
okay, I hear that, but I look ahead and I see a second lot that's now gonna have potentially double the number of bedrooms. There's a day that could be sold or changed, and that second access could be easily come the equivalent of a controlled access point for people who are in a non-riparian lot. So that's my concern.
If I may just respond to that, this is not something that was mentioned earlier, so of course Steve and I haven't had a chance to talk about this, but I know that it's their plan, and we know plans can change, but it is their plan that this back lot, the Tract B, remain family-owned far into the future.
Yeah, even if it was sold to one family member as a separate, I could see two buildings, two separate I don't know how many children have, two separate family things who want their own access point. And then it becomes a non-riparian lot with an access point to the lake, which is against the shoreline management ordinance. That's my logic. Same would be simple if it's not used and it's been there kind of a long time and not used, it would be simple to shut it down. So, I don't know how my colleagues feel about it, but
Well, yeah, I could have the boat and that out of
Does
there.
anybody else have any comments on the,
What, this is Tim, what exactly is that rule? Are we allowed to have a dock every 150 feet of shoreline?
I
Or
think-
only one per residence?
I don't know, I'll say it this way, my understanding is for 150 feet, you have one 20 by 15 rec area you're allowed and a dock. And if you look at the DNR things, typically they prefer that it take up no more than 50 feet or 50%, which is ever less of the shoreline. That's my understanding of what that shoreline should be like. And clearly, his whole large dock area has a lot more than the 20 by 15 rec area that you're allowed. No, I'm not making an issue out of that, but he now has a second,
What's the,
what you call rec area access point to the lake.
I would say this, though, I mean, certainly the request for the subdivision approval, it would be more important than this second dock thing, so. I believe the measurements on the peninsula are over 150 feet, if that matters at all.
It's not 300 though.
Right.
That's
And
true.
that's the point. If the two pegs here is 223 feet, but that's not how they measure the shore. They take the two property points. It's somewhere in that 200 plus, but not
Okay.
300 range.
this is Veronica speaking. I understand Ken's point as far as, yes, that would be two locations, two accesses for the property, like he said, with the non-riparian. At this time, you know, I don't know if it's something that you want to look into at this time, or if that's something that environmental services, that's their department as far as if it's a violation having two accesses. They're only allowed one. That's a violation that could be addressed through the environmental services office.
This is Mike. I guess I'm becoming confused. So I'm going to ask a few questions to see if I can clarify it in my mind. We have no jurisdiction over docks, is that correct?
Correct.
On residential properties.
On residential property. What
Yes.
we do have is the amount of recreational areas that we allow on any shore impact zone.
And the access, the lake access.
And lake
Right,
access?
he's right.
Right,
It's
right.
really what we have a control over is the shore, rec areas on the shore.
Right.
Yeah.
Just the rec area, because access, if I've got a flat lot and I can access it at every 10 feet for 300 feet, you know, that's 30 accesses. We don't control accesses, we control, it's my understanding, the rec area. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that would be for an totally vegetated shore impact zone where somebody's wanting to create one where there currently isn't any location for putting a dock in, pulling lifts out, et cetera. And here we've got a shoreline that's been altered enough over the years, we don't know when, but I'd treat it as a existing non-conforming situation. And
I guess that's what I was getting at. And then my second question or point would be, right now, as I see this, Tract A, or Parcel A, if it's approved, has no official easement to cross that property for Parcel B. Is that correct?
it's proposed as shown on the survey, so it would run over the existing driveway.
I think he means to the lake.
To the lake. Yeah, I'm referring to the lake.
No, the back lot wouldn't be allowed legal access to the lake.
Right.
Right.
So,
So that kind of clears out that,
yeah, so I don't see the need for the, I guess where I'm getting at is I'm having trouble seeing the need for a condition. And if this is granted, any violations that are identified have to be corrected before it can take place. So I'm not, I'm concerned, but it's not putting up flags in my mind that it would stop me from thinking this is okay.
Look, but parcel B has no legal access is the point I think you said parcel B, okay.
Correct.
yeah. This is Veronica. I agree. The clarification helps. A condition really isn't necessary because parcel B does not have legal access to go through there.
We've been presenting that as a non-riparian lot.
So this is Mike again. So again, if at some point things change down the road, and they're split off, two separate families, no common interest, parcel B is non-riparian, so their access is non-existent. It's only access in my mind as long as it is a family compound where it's in common. So based on that and the uniqueness of this lot for the variance needed at the setback, I'm okay with this, and the road easement is beyond the control of the landowner here.
Okay, thank you, Mike. One other additional, so last month, we discussed some violations that we already know that Environmental Services talked to you about. Have you cleared up those violations? Have you received a letter or just had verbal discussion?
I have not since that meeting. I think it was, the biggest thing was to find a surveyor.
Okay.
Yeah, that extra guest cabin, however, is that what you're referring to,
Yeah.
Veronica? Yeah, we haven't received an official letter,
Not yet, no.
but
you're
it
aware
would
of-
be,
you're-
yes, the intention is for this this new building to replace the old.
Okay, so you're well aware of the
Yes.
possible violations and that you'll
Yeah.
be taking care of them. So,
Yep.
okay, I guess, if
Point,
anybody,
you're proposing a condition that all the nonconformances are cleaned up before this split can take place. Is that
I can,
the point you're making?
it can be done, yes, if that's what everybody's leaning towards.
Well, I mean, Eric's office, the two guest houses, the two guest cabins and all that, that's part of what has to get cleaned up, either permitted or denied, as a precursor to this actual administrative subdivision
Right, actually,
taking place. That's,
yep, Eric, actually, when I asked that question earlier, Eric's answer was that violations would be addressed if they were, or would be cleaned up if they were addressed,
If they were identified.
if they were identified.
So,
In my eyes,
would that have to be done?
any
prior to
violations
getting
that could be
subdivision?
coming out will still have to be identified, whether it's 2 tracks or 1. That's how I see it, but that's,
that would sound like a broken record if that includes allowing only one record area,
oh,
because we have control over that.
I don't believe again, we can't establish when all of that took place, so it's kind of a non-conforming at this time. Anybody else have any other questions or comments? Anybody else have any input on that condition? In favor of it?
Again, I'm not, if we're referring to rec areas,
I just believe in the conditions would be that all violations on the property must be cleared up and compliant before the subdivision takes place.
I'm okay with that.
Can I say something?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
The reason for the subdivision and the new buildings is so that we can comply.
Correct.
And so one has to come before the other. And so we would ask that we have enough time to build that building to replace the one that is going to be back to a garage. And so that would be a request that we'd have.
This is Veronica speaking. I kind of said that already, that with the applicant stating also that that's part of cleaning up some of their violations with that extra guest cottage. If we don't put that on there, Environmental Services is already going to address any possible violations that are on the property anyhow.
I understand that. I think what the applicant is requesting is that the second guest cottage be allowed to be remaining until the new structure is built on Parcel B, in which case, if it's my understanding that it would not be compliant and it could never be a subdivision. So
Right.
if we put that condition
Right,
on,
it won't work.
that requires the second guest cabin to be removed prior to building. Is that the intent, Ken?
Well, I don't see why we should allow a violation of 2 guest cabins. We never would approve that. Okay?
Correct, but that's not the end result when this new structure is built. That guest cabin, that second one will be removed.
Well,
Or the
I guess
living
I've
quarters.
the living quarters would be removed. It'd be returned to use simply as
An
garage.
accessory structure. I mean, if you'd like to place a condition that states that once this is built, then
Is everybody else okay with letting them have 2 guests, two living, to maintain those 2 until the new ones are built? We should put a time frame on that then.
I'd be fine with that.
go ahead, Eric.
We're getting into
Minutia.
Yeah.
an area that I wouldn't recommend we get into, because it's been shared with us by the applicant that he's got that, part of that garage is living quarters, which the ordinance doesn't allow. We don't have a variance, we haven't had an opportunity yet to
Fair.
have staff go out there, investigate, document, and verify, and then send correspondence per standard practice to inform them of the violation and give them information on how to correct it. What I would not advise is, we don't have a variance before you, a request to seek a variance from the ordinance statement that says if there's any existing violations on a property, they have to be corrected before new permits for new items can be issued. So we'd have to give public notice to that effect. I would advise against granting a variance that hasn't been requested or noticed. So I would leave it as, assuming we identify that and communicate that to them, they would need to remove those living quarters before we could issue the permit for the new structure. That's how it would need to go, or they could, at that point, after we verify that and send a letter, then they could request a variance from that provision if they wanted to.
Understand? Again,
What I read was, once they do the evaluation and identify a non-compliance, the actions out of that non-compliance could be, it can be there, it can remain until something new is built. You could do that. Isn't that not what, that's what I was trying,
at this, go ahead.
The violation would have to be corrected. Any and all violations would have to
okay.
be corrected before permits for new
Okay.
construction could be issued.
no, that's good, okay.
So basically, because the violations have not been identified
Yeah,
yet,
okay.
that will take place.
And we all feel comfortable approving this,
I feel comfortable
Variance.
approving this because I know violations.
even without knowing the details.
Correct.
Okay.
I do. I don't know about everybody else.
Okay.
Because I know any violations that are possibly out there, Environmental Services is going to send staff out. They're going to do
Okay,
they're going to do the proper process.
okay.
Okay, I'm prepared to make a motion if everybody else is good. Okay, thank you. This is Veronica. I make a motion that we approve the subdivision application with no conditions. I have findings of facts here. Number one is the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls. Yes, subdividing the property to construct additional residential units that meet the shoreland management ordinance requirements is in harmony with the application, or with this official controls. Number two is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by an official control. The property is approximately 3.8 acres. Subdividing the lot to create the non-riparian lot to construct additional residential structures is a reasonable request. Also clearing up any possible violations and extra guest cottages. Number three is the need for a variance due to circumstances unique to the property and not created by the current or prior property owners. Due to the unique peninsula shape, the riparian lot does not meet the 150-foot lot width, actually at the 100-foot ordinary high water mark structure setback. However, the lot does meet the 150-foot lot width at the ordinary high water mark. And the driveway easements have been established and the SSTS requirements have been met for both lots with that boundary line survey. And then number four is, will the issuance of the variance maintain the essential character of the locality? Yes, the location is a mix of seasonal residential homes. And I will adopt number five.
This is Mike, I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Mike. This is Veronica. I made the motion to approve the applications. I provided the four findings of facts, adopted number five. Mike seconded. Tim, how do you vote?
This is Tim, I vote aye.
Ken, how do you vote?
I vote nay.
Larry, how do you vote?
This is Larry, I vote aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Mike, I vote aye.
And this is Veronica. I vote aye. Your application for the subdivision has been approved. You'll get the letter from Environmental Services on the next steps to take.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item is new business. Variance application 31-B-24 by Michael and Melissa Monson. Lot 13, Block 1, Ojibwe Estates, Section 19, Township 141, Range 33, Mantrap Township on Ojibwe Lake, a recreational development lake. Parcel 20.48.01300. The applicants are requesting an after-the-fact variance from Section 702 of the Shoreline Management Ordinance for an expansion of a non-conforming dwelling located in the shore impact zone. And thank you. If you could please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Mike Monson. My address is 635 Glencoe Road, Excelsior, Minnesota, 55331.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Munson. And you have with you,
This is my real estate agent.
okay, go ahead and state your name and address, please.
Eric Wolf, Wolf and Simon Real Estate, 1217 First Street East, Park Rapids, Minnesota, 56467.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wolf. Okay, Mr. Munson, go ahead and tell us a little bit about your after-the-fact request.
So we are asking for the after-the-fact variance. 5 years ago, my wife and I added a 12 by 12 screen porch and a 9 by 9 bedroom addition to the rear of the cabin. We were not aware of the need for county approval of the projects at the time. 5 years has come and gone. We have hired Eric Wolf to sell the property as it has come that time for our family. When the time came to sell, it came to our attention that we in fact needed the proper permits from the township and county. And Mr. Wolf came into the county and asked what process we needed to work through to get everything wrapped up and ready to sell.
Okay. All right, thank you. You mentioned that it was built 5 years ago, 2019, and you purchased the house, the cabin in 2016?
Correct.
Correct, okay. During the lot views, I believe you said the septic had been installed, is that correct?
The variance process triggered the state compliance inspection, and it was deemed a failed system. So Dave Hacker, Backhoe Pete, helped us out, and I've had good relationship with Dave during this process, thanks to Eric recommending him, and he was able to fit us in June of 2024, and everything has been, it's a new mound system corrected and permitted and in working order.
Okay, so I was reviewing the application and the septic application, but I had not found the as-built inspection report yet. And are you having problems? I mean, do you recall the as-built inspection? Do we have any of that information besides, do you have information for us for that, Eric, as far as that as-built?
I'm not entirely certain if this is the property that's been discussed in the office that involved a tank that may have been set too deep.
Okay. Since this has been installed, I mean, do we have any concerns about that? I mean, if this one does have proper as-built, am I gonna go by that?
Well, if this is the property that has that issue, that will need to get taken care of.
Okay.
I was given no notice of that. Should I have been given notice of that?
Oh, during my reviews, I couldn't find, while we were out there, I heard you say that we had new septic, I saw new grass and everything, so on my review, I was looking for the as-built inspection, which happens every time a new septic is put in or changed. I didn't find it yet, so that's why I was asking if you had the as-built. I hadn't been documented yet. What date was this installed? You said June.
It was finalized in June 2024. Yeah, I have the design and the permit application here.
And I had that too. I
as
just
far as
didn't
an
see
as-
the as-built, what actually was taking place. That's okay. I just wanted a date, so.
The permit was issued 5/28/24, for what that's worth.
It's okay. Any other members have any questions? Okay.
This Ken, I think on the drawing and in your application, you indicate that you are going to restore about 500 square feet to natural vegetation. So I'd like to see that as a condition.
That was a condition of a deck permit I received from the county, so that is part of a permit, which is numbered 23485, which was issued on.
Into the one for the deck, so we don't need it as a condition here. Okay.
And I have, yeah, it's right here.
I'm going to
Okay.
go ahead and open for public comment. And seeing no public comment, I will close public comment. This cabin is currently seasonal only, correct?
Correct,
Uninsulated.
correct.
This is Mike. Question for Eric. If this were approved, the septic permit process would require that as-built and everything be submitted and approved prior to this taking effect if approved. Is that correct?
No, there technically isn't a violation of an ordinance as of yet relative to that issue, so we'd work to try to get that corrected and would hope that it would be able to be. I mean, if it would go for an extended length of time and it isn't, then it would turn into a violation, but
Okay.
they're
So
still
our
within.
purposes, we assume that septic system is, compliance is completed. The non-compliant septic system has been fixed.
That's
with the new
been
system.
fixed,
Yeah,
but like I
that's our
said,
assumption. Okay.
if this is the property that has that tank burial depth issue, then that will have to be remedied before the as-built can be issued.
Yeah, okay.
This is Mike. I guess I'd also recommend a condition be placed that this remain a seasonal uninsulated cabin and that the screen porch cannot be converted to being fully enclosed.
Eric, this is Veronica speaking. Could just a possible condition state that the as-built inspection needs to be in place by a certain date to help with that?
Yeah, one of the additions is a bedroom, so I suppose you could put a condition that would say that would have to get corrected by a certain point in time.
The cabin did go from a two-bedroom cabin to a two-bedroom cabin. It's not a three-bedroom cabin anymore. So we didn't make it we didn't add a bed, we added a bedroom, but the little tiny bedroom is now part of it, the living room. So, for what that's worth.
So it's still same across the board, 2 for 2. Did you understand the 2 conditions that Mike proposed to you about that it remains a seasonal structure, uninsulated cabin, and the screen porch must remain a screen porch and can never be converted to a fully enclosed sidewalls? You understand that?
Yes,
And you're okay with those conditions?
yes.
Any other questions or comments? This is Veronica speaking. I'm in favor of the application being approved. The screen porch addition is on the side of the cabin, and the bedroom addition is on the non-lake side of the cabin, which meets the ordinance's intent and not increasing the nonconformities. The scale of the 2 additions are very reasonable, and the additions are uninsulated and minimally built. So it makes sense, like staff number 1 showed, to move outside the shore impact zone in order to be enlarged. It's not really possible. I think with the 2 conditions that are proposed, or possible 3rd one on the septic as-built inspection, that we are prepared to move forward if everyone else is.
You need a second?
I haven't made a motion yet. I was
Oh.
just throwing those out there, making sure that everybody's on the same page.
This is Mike. I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Mike, I'll make a motion that we approve this application with the conditions that the structure remain a seasonal uninsulated cabin, and the screen porch, second condition, the screen porch must remain a screen porch and cannot be converted to have fully enclosed sidewalls. And the third condition, that as-built must be submitted and approved prior to this taking place.
Okay.
And accept the staff's findings of fact.
This is Ken, I'll second the motion.
Okay, Mike made a motion to approve the application with the the 3 conditions, and Mike seconded the application. Tim, how do you vote?
This is Tim, I vote aye.
Ken, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Mike, I vote aye.
Larry, how do you vote?
This is Larry, I vote aye.
And this is Veronica, I vote aye. Your application has been approved. You'll receive a letter from Environmental Services Office on the next steps. Okay, thank you.
So much for your time.
Variance application 32-B-24 by Denise and Dwayne Tollefson, Lot 1, Block 1, 11th Haven, Section 15, Township 141, Range 32, Akeley Township on 11th Crow Wing Lake, a recreational development lake, Parcel 01.52.00100. Applicants are requesting a variance from the Section 502.2 of the Shoreland Management Ordinance for a platform and pergola to be located within the 100-foot ordinary high watermark setback structure. Okay, thank you. Can you please state your names and address for the record?
Sure, I'm Denise Tollefson, this is Dwayne Tollefson, we're at 25264 County 25 in Akeley.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead and give us a little bit of your request.
We are requesting a wood pergola to go around along the front of the home on the lakeside, which is about 35 feet across, it'll be 10 feet deep, and it'll go up about 10 feet to go along with the second level of the house. It would also have a paver floor on the pergola. And part of the pergola on the floor is gonna go beyond the 100-foot setback mark. The 100-foot setback mark isn't a straight across thing, so part of it is behind the 100-foot setback mark and part of it is on the other side of the setback mark. Just a little information about why that corner of the house is as close to that 100-foot mark as it is. When we bought the lot back in 2016, it just had a little kind of a truck road in on that upper driveway. We had to do a driveway variance several years back to rebuild the driveway coming in because we just couldn't use that upper road. And with the driveway coming in, it was quite narrow. When they placed the house, we originally wanted to build an 1,800 square foot, one-level home with a 3-car garage and then put a nice deck on the front of the house, you know, on the lakeside. Unfortunately, with the space that we had in there with that steep slope in the water runoff on the other side of the house, we had to downgrade our house to a 1,200 square foot house. And then we ended up building up to a 2-story and then putting the deck on the side of the house because that one front corner of the deck is quite close to that 100-foot setback mark. If you go to the other side of the house, though, there probably is about 10 feet there that would fit the pergola and area there. I probably should have sent in pictures maybe of our original build where it was very narrow. We actually didn't have enough space to even put in a sidewalk until we brought in some extra fill on that back door area. So we can put in a sidewalk. So we weren't able to bring the house back closer to the road due to that narrowness of that space there.
This is Veronica speaking. Eric, can you please put up the aerial map with the contours? Does anybody have any questions for the applicant at this
Well,
time?
I'm exactly mine.
That's what I want.
I'm looking for, why it is it couldn't have been built back
Okay,
another 10 feet originally.
Right, okay, so here's a picture of the house, correct? And can you explain to me again why you're talking about this narrow side that you couldn't turn it?
On the
you know?
west side, there wasn't, when you look at that picture, that's after our fill had been brought in. And at the time of the build, the builder said that if you try to angle the house, you know, so the garage goes towards the steep slope, we would be building into that steep slope.
Okay, but if you would have just backed the house up 10 more feet towards that car, then it would have fit?
We didn't have the space at the time because we didn't have the fill on the side.
Behind the garage.
Right. So we brought in that extra fill and kind of expanded that out after the footings were already done.
Yeah, originally when the house was being constructed, that west side, if you look at it,
And I have.
the drop off was basically coming out the garage door a few feet over and it's dropped off. So our neighbor actually was digging out, so they brought fill over to ours to help everybody. And, yeah, so we went by what our builder suggested and not going into the side hill. And we couldn't go to the west because, well, there's basically a creek that runs through there until it stops raining here in June and July. But otherwise, that's wet.
And I do have current pictures of the build itself that shows how narrow that was. I don't know if that's helpful or allowed, but.
Does anybody have any other questions or comments, or I'm going to open for public comment? Okay, I'm going to open for public comment. And seeing no public comment, I will close public comment. Okay, so go ahead, Ken. Or,
Well, just, you know.
No, you can go ahead.
Public, I guess what I heard is that you had constraints that forced you to build it where you did. But after you built it, you eliminated those constraints by putting in fill and so on. Why didn't you do that originally?
We did, when we were discussing with the builder, we originally were gonna do that 1,800 square foot house. When he was in doing the measurements of that space there, he said we could fit a 1,200 square foot footprint in there. And when we had asked about expanding or could we, you know, do something, he just said that they wouldn't be able to do that and it would be very expensive to bring all of that fill in. And lucky for us with the fill, when our neighbor was building their house, they had to get rid of it, and so they brought it over for us to use on there. We didn't realize that we could actually do that at the time of the build. Otherwise, we would have. I would have had my 1,800 square foot, one level home.
And I know in regards to pushing it back, when you look at that map where the vehicle is in the driveway, they wanted to have a flat driveway, not the road, because the road is sloped all the way down to where that vehicle is parked and then it flattens out. Not wanting to have a driveway that's sloped all the way into the garage, basically. So there is a flat area there for turning around and not having to back 200 feet out into the highway.
If we would have pushed the house back, then the driveway, because it does come down on a slope, if you remember, and if we would have pushed it back too far, it would have sloped right into the garage as well.
And if you measure the shoreline 30 feet east or west of where it's measured from right now, we'd be behind the setback. That area where our dock is, basically, it comes right back, and that's the closest location to the house.
Okay, this is Veronica speaking. I appreciate all the information and input. You stated that you first initially were looking at a larger size house. You spoke with your contractor. The contractor said, nope, it's not really gonna fit there. You gotta go with this house. So then at that point, you decided that you wanted this type of deck that would fit. If you would have turned it even 6 feet, then you would have had another, you would have been 10 more feet, you know, that 10 feet on both sides. I'm just saying, in my eyes, during that time, you had made the decision to
We
make it
couldn't
smaller.
turn the house at all because the way the garage.
Right, I
comes
understand that, but you made the decision to build this house with this size deck and not a lakeward deck, correct? Because of the
At that
information you
time,
were,
yeah.
correct, yeah, at that time.
And then when we saw that the fill got added, I mean, I wish we knew then what we know now, but we don't. And,
You have a 2,400 square foot house now, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot bigger than I wanted it to be.
With the second floor.
With the
Yeah.
second floor.
Yeah. It has a 1,200 square foot footprint.
Yeah.
And we even the way the house is angled, we wanted to angle it more, but the garage would have been right into that steep slope then. And we wouldn't have been able
Yeah,
to do
typically
that.
our windows would be wanting to face the lake, not shifted off the way the shoreline goes.
But with the topography and how that was, we didn't want to get into that steep slope. We didn't want to build a garage into the steep slope. We were worried about water runoff if it was, you know, any closer to that steep slope.
Right. And that's, the builder and the excavator came up with this, turning the house so we could put it onto that spot.
This is Veronica speaking. If you were to not have it freestanding, how many feet would you gain?
Say that again?
If you were not having a freestanding pergola and you attached a deck to the house, how many feet would you gain?
If we attached another deck to the front of the
If you
house?
attached a deck, or if you put the patio right up to the house instead of having it, however many your retaining wall is to hold the pergolas up.
Well,
you
the
know.
retaining wall is gonna be 2 feet, and it'll mirror the overhang from the top of the house, the eave or whatever.
It's 12 feet out, if that's what you're asking, from
Yeah.
from the house to
So-
the end.
So you're gaining just 4 feet there then, approximately? You said 12 all the way to the end.
We would only gain 2 feet, because the retaining wall itself is only 2 feet out from the house, and then the pergola flooring would be an additional 10 feet out. So it'll be 12 feet from the house, which would be under the eave. That makes sense.
Right, so that's why I was asking how much you would gain if you just had the patio directly to the house, not necessarily with a pergola, with a roof tower, you know, if it had a different type of roofing system, if you wanted it covered. I just wanted to know how many feet you would gain and how much less you would be in the 100-foot ordinary high water mark setback. So you basically wouldn't be in it on the back end, and you'd be 2 to 4 feet less on the deck side. Because from that 100-foot ordinary white line, it says it's only 8 feet. And on the back, you say it's all the way 12. 10 and 2.
Because it runs
Is
across.
it 10 all the way or 10 and 2?
So it's like,
Or is it 8 and 2?
10 and 2.
That's what it says, it's 10 and 2, so it's,
yep, it's 12 feet out from the house, what we have proposed. I guess we didn't think about how big of a deck we would want on that I didn't think that was an option.
Well, I think we wanted an outdoor area, not enclosed. We're not trying to put a screen porch or anything closed with
Right.
with a roof. We're
Right.
looking for some
It'll just
shade,
be
shade as a wooden pergola.
pavers on the ground and then an open pergola on top.
And I wish my pictures were from the other day, because it's laid out much better than this one. This one's a little harder to see, but
What's the use for this? You don't have access to it from the house, you have a nice deck. So you want to put in a 10 by 35 foot concrete?
Well, it would
Not
be
concrete.
pavers, so it'd be,
Pavers.
yeah.
What does that do for you?
It allows more space when the family is there. It's,
Space for
for when family is there to sit,
sitting outside?
sitting outside.
lounge chairs.
And the pergola does what?
So it does block some of the sun with, it's open on top. That picture I showed you on Thursday, it is open on top. We don't intend to enclose that at all. And it's a nice sitting area on the lake side of the house. And we do plan on, with part of this proposal, to put steps down from that deck. That would, it'd be like 2 or 3 steps down from the deck there. That would tie into the
Yeah,
pavers.
that's in the proposal, and that deck railing would be taken off that area where the steps come down to make access to the seating area.
This is Mike. I just need some clarification. The corner of the house that I'm seeing here, closest to us, how far back from the 100-foot line is that?
The corner where the deck comes out, where the deck is covered,
Is that 103?
it's at about, so we're about 3 feet behind the 100-foot setback.
And my point is that regardless of what your contractor and excavator and everyone said, at the time of the build, there was room to move this back 4 feet or 5 feet. I'm not convinced there isn't. And by choosing to place it here, you're that close to the line. I can't, I personally am having difficulty with this because I can't answer question 3 in the affirmative because this was entirely done by you to place this house here. And so I don't see how I can answer that affirmatively to grant this variance.
I do have a picture that shows how cramped it was before we.
I understand that we saw the lot when we gave the variance for the driveway and the road. There was ample time to work through all of these issues if at some point, even though your plans changed from single floor to 2 floor, there was ample time to make adjustments to allow room to stay within the ordinance. That was a conscious choice to build here. So because of that, I can't answer affirmatively no matter what you believe the restrictions were for building.
Anybody else have any other comments? Thank you, Mike, for your input.
If I look at the drawing, I see the 92 feet on the closest. Is that to the point at which the 10-foot platform paver would go in?
That's, yep, where it would end, yep.
Okay.
So we're
So
into it
your-
about 8
So your house
feet.
as it exists is about 102 feet back right there.
It's 103 from the corner of the deck, so
Corner of the
I'm not.
deck, so,
So yeah, if you're looking at the corner of the house, it's probably, I don't know, it's on the thing.
I was just saying, you would have room for a couple 2 or 3 foot paver next to the house that could
Yeah.
help with rain and stuff like that.
Well, we could keep it behind the 100-foot setback, and it would be a very abnormal shaped patio and everything, which really doesn't add to the aesthetics of the home.
yeah, we wouldn't have enough room on that one side to put.
Okay. Public comment?
I did.
You did, I forgot that, okay.
Anybody else have any other comments?
This is Larry. Just in the interest of us doing our job, one of the requirements are that we do have to answer yes to each of these conditions, or whatever we're calling them, I guess.
Findings of facts.
Findings of fact, I'm sorry. The new guy, I don't have all the terms
It's okay,
down yet.
no worries.
Our hands are tied, we really can't accept this. Sorry.
Well, it's disappointing.
Because of the restrictions of the ordinance that they've given us.
So, question for you then, if we wanted to do something behind the 100-foot setback, we can do the retaining wall still. And we can put pavers down on the part that's behind the 100-foot setback? Is that my understanding?
Within the 100-foot setback, you would go to the Environmental Services Office and apply for a platform deck, whichever you're going to do, as long as it remains behind the 100-foot setback. Yes, it would be odd, shaped a little bit differently, or it would just, you could have a sidewalk, the steps down and that 2 or 3 feet width to a larger area where it does open up in the back more, I don't.
Is there a way to show you that we didn't have the space at that time?
The problem is, like my colleagues have said, is because you had opportunity prior, as you've mentioned yourself, knowing your constraints and placement of the house now, and at that 100-foot setback, we have to answer these 5 questions in the affirmative favor, and we cannot answer number 3 for sure. Is the need for the variance due to circumstances unique to the property and not created by the current or prior owner? It is not unique because you knew where the 100-foot setback was, and you chose to build. You made changes from your 1,800 square foot to your 12, and already made changes to reduce the deck to fit where you wanted. So you had knowledge, you had the opportunity then. So it's definitely not in harmony with, the intent. If we were to say, oh yeah, well, go ahead and do that. That's not for us to do. That's not really the way we work. We try to do things when you can't, when the problem is unique. The situations are changed. But this is basically just because of the placement that you decided for the house. So it's really hard for us to move forward on this one.
You still have the opportunity to have an 8-foot, maybe to 10-foot
Deck or patio.
area, half the, 15, 18 feet, that's still a sizable area.
Like you mentioned, you weren't gonna be walking out from the house anyhow, it was just gonna be additional seating. It just would be smaller in the back with a pavered walkway towards it.
Someone make a motion.
Madam Chair, I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
I make the motion that we deny this application and accept the staff findings of fact.
This is Larry, I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Mike to deny the application, a second by Larry adopting the findings of fact. Tim, how do you vote?
This is Tim, I vote aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
So Mike, I vote aye.
Ken, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Larry, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
And this is Veronica, I vote aye. You will receive a decision letter from Environmental Services. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, variance application 33-B-24. Koehly, Personal? Yep. All right. Lot 5, Block 1, Lakewood, Section 8, Township 141, Range 33, Mantrap Township on West Crooked Lake, a natural environment lake. Parcel 20.58.00500. Applicant is requesting an after-the-fact variance from Section 502.1 of the Shoreland Management Ordinance for an accessory structure located within the 150-foot ordinary high watermark structure setback. Mr. Fastenal.
Cody Firstina.
Yeah.
780 Riverbend Road, Oxbow, North Dakota.
All right.
So last year I hired Meadowland Surveying to come up and survey the high water mark. And then I hired a small builder to pour the concrete slab and put that in. I was under the impression that he was going to apply for the permit. He never did. And he put it on the wrong side of the setback line. The line was staked. He put the wall exactly on the wrong side of the setback. So instead of being built, it's a 20 by 20 gazebo. Instead of being built from 150 feet to 170. He built it from 130 to 150. It's already completed, it's in its place, and it is in the wrong spot.
When was the so it's on a concrete slab,
It is on a thickened concrete slab, yep.
When was the concrete slab poured?
He did it last year in September, probably.
Okay, and when did the construction take place for the gazebo then?
I think it was about the same time. He did it in September, October. And I did not see it for the first time until May when I got the letter, because I hadn't been out there all winter. So I had no way to know it was in the wrong spot.
Who was the builder?
I had Classic Concrete pour the slab, and then it's a guy named Chase, who's just he works construction in Fargo, who I know. He does like side projects.
And did you pull permits at all for
They did
any
not
of
pull the permit. Classic was supposed to pull the permit, and he never did.
And you live
I
near
live
Fargo,
in
right?
Oxbow, yeah, it's about 20 minutes south of Fargo.
You never came over to check or look?
I didn't.
And discover it, you know,
Correct.
when they started leveling it out and looking to pour the concrete, you never came and checked?
Correct.
Surprising.
I have 3 young kids and don't have a lot of time to get out here, and especially in the winter.
Does your contractor have a Minnesota builder's license?
He does.
Why is the entry door in such a odd place?
Because he built it backwards.
That's what I thought.
Yep. Trust me, I'm not real impressed. But I don't want to have to tear it down because it's an expensive thing. It's already there, it's already done. So the door was supposed to be on the exact opposite side of where it's at.
How big is your lot?
It's 8 acres. It's a 20 by 20 building. It's deep back in the trees there.
This is Larry. Have you approached them about making it right? Either one?
I let the concrete guy know that he poured it in the wrong spot, and he was not happy with me when I told him that I might have to tear it down and I was going to make him pay for it. But I don't know if I will ever get a penny out of him. He's a small town contractor. I'm guessing it would all be on me to get it torn down and removed and replaced, and it'd be a very expensive process.
How can you not build it on the right side of a setback line when you know where the lake is?
It's beyond me. The setback line is, if you're looking at that picture there, there's the tree on the side and then the building. The setback line is literally touching the other wall, opposite the tree. This lake is does have a lot of grade, so we are also very high up above the water, just for your guys' knowledge of the lot. Probably 30 plus feet above the water level.
We have a number 3 issue again.
Anybody else have any other questions, members-wise, and before I open for public comment? At this time, I'm going to open for public comment. And seeing no public comment, I will close public comment.
Can I say one more thing?
Oh, yes.
I have spoken to both my neighbors on both sides, and they have both said that they are perfectly happy with it, and they think it looks nice. So if that does anything for you guys.
You had a permit for septic not too long ago, correct?
Correct.
When did that get pulled?
Esser put that in, that must have been 2022, I would think.
Okay. So, and this also was 2022?
No, this was 2023.
Okay. Did you come and pull the permit for the septic, or did?
Esser did.
So you provided an authorized agent form?
I'm not sure. I know I did have to sign some paperwork for him, but I don't know what that would be.
Septic system, was there a permit?
Yes, Eric's looking it up right here, the application.
Okay. This is a pretty simple building. It could be moved.
I don't know how, but maybe lift it like a house, like when you move houses down the street. Is that what you're thinking? The only problem is getting to it. It's very, very hard to get down to it because of the slope of the property, but
So in 2022, you signed the authorized agent form giving your septic agent authority to pull a permit on your behalf in 2022. You said you had this concrete slab and the building constructed in 2023.
correct.
So that tells me you knew that we had permitting requirements and that you should have had a permit and authorized agent form signed,
Correct.
that you were aware of permitting.
Absolutely.
This is Mike. Did we do public comment yet?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Again, I can't find how I can answer affirmative to a number of these questions. The lot is ample size. It certainly appears that the permit process, there was knowledge of permits needed. To me, this issue is between the applicant and his contractors, and I in good faith can't approve this application when there was ample room to do it correctly, and not visiting or trusting the contractor is beyond the purvey of this board. We can only deal with what's in front of us.
This is Veronica, I agree with you, Mike.
This is Tim, I agree. And I don't believe it's quite as complicated to move. I've dealt with moving structures like that, and it can be done.
How would you go about it, if I can ask?
A house mover.
Okay.
That's what I was going to suggest, is a house mover, and then your concrete guy needs to pour you a new slab to make up for.
And
Remove the old.
hopefully they both take care of that.
Mhm. So,
Madam Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion.
okay, go ahead, Mike.
This is Mike. I make the motion that we deny the application and accept the staff findings of fact.
This is Tim, I'll second the motion.
Okay, Mike made a motion to deny the application, adopting the staff's findings of facts. Tim seconded the motion. Tim, how do you vote?
This is Tim, I vote aye.
Ken, how do you vote?
This is Ken, I vote aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Mike, I vote aye.
Larry, how do you vote?
This is Larry, I vote aye.
And this is Veronica, I vote aye. Mr. Freshnell, your application was denied. You will receive a decision letter from Environmental Services Office in the next couple of days to tell you the next steps.
Okay, I was gonna ask, is there a timeline to get it moved or anything like that?
That,
That was communicated in the violation letter that was sent.
yeah.
Pull that
Yeah.
up for you. August 1st was the deadline given.
To get it moved? Well, that's impossible. It's 8 days from now, 9 days from now.
Does the applicant have any chance of going to the office and requesting an extension for that, to a 30-day extension?
Yeah, you can do so.
I mean, is that a possibility?
Get a good faith plan.
I don't know what your options are. At this time, your deadline is August 1st, but maybe you should work with the Environmental Services Office and see if you can do anything with that. You might have a few options there, or you might not, so.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
You're welcome. Next item on the agenda, application 34-B-24, Russell Johnston and Jennifer Lee, part of Government Lot 1, Section 13, Township 140, Range 34, Henrietta Township on Lake Beltane, a recreational development lake. Parcel 13.13.00200. The applicants are requesting Part 1 and after-the-fact variance from Section 702 of the Shoreland Management Ordinance for a lakeside deck on a non-conforming structure located within the 100-foot ordinary high watermark setback. And Part 2, a variance from Section 702 of the Shoreland Management Ordinance for a proposed waterward addition to a non-conforming structure located within the 100-foot ordinary high watermark setback. Go ahead and please state your name and address for the record.
Russell Johnston, 21493 Eden Drive, Nevis.
Okay, and you have with you your authorized agent, yes?
I have my contractor.
Yep.
I'm with contractor.
Okay, and your name, sir?
Name,
Name and address, please.
Ron McLean, 23886 County 80, Nevis.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Johnson, go ahead, go with your request, please.
Sure. We purchased the home, closed in May, and we wanted to repair a ground level deck underneath the deck, ground level boards, and some retaining walls that were rotting. So I contacted Ron, we came out, discussed a plan. We were gonna put in a concrete pad, but prior to that, we filed for a permit. And in that process, we found that our actual deck was in violation. They had built a deck that was wider than previous, and they did not pull a permit. So currently, we have a deck that is too wide with footings poured, and we would like to have the deck stay as is. And we would also like to pour a concrete pad beneath it. I understood that there was a variance granted previously for a pad to come 16 feet out from the house. We'd just like to go 10 foot, 6 inches, and we'd also like to put screen panels underneath the deck.
Okay, thank you. This is Veronica. I have a question for Eric. Henrietta Township, does it have zoning?
They do, but not in Shoreland.
Okay, so we don't need approval. Okay. Okay. In your application, it's a little vague for me as far as under the lower level. You had some pictures submitted with your application for screened enclosures, but both of those pictures, for me, they are mosquito netting. They're not panels.
Okay.
So you mentioned panels and such.
We just want to go floor to ceiling, removable panels, something that we can take out in the winter, just to keep the bugs out and have a nice sitting area underneath the deck.
During our lot views, you had mentioned there was some planter boxes on each side of the lower level that they were using as like some retaining wall to keep some of that water that was coming down and around. You talked about changing those out.
Yeah, on the west side, there were actual brick retaining wall. On the west side, there's a planter box that's rotting away.
Okay, so when you're talking about this screened-in porches and stuff, and the retaining wall there, how tall of the retaining wall are you planning to go back right there?
I think it just goes up like 24 inches.
Just a couple, just right there to the ground level?
Just
Only maybe 2 feet tall at the top.
Mhm.
It just covered his footings is all he did,
Okay.
whoever did it.
Yeah.
You're talking about the side here?
The
Because
sides,
there's one
both
there is one on the other, both sides.
Right.
Yeah, that's the wooden one. It's more like a planter box. You can see it in the far left.
But your plans are to do the
The right
same,
corner.
same
Yeah,
as the
same
one side as the
configuration.
other? Yep. And so your screened-in panels would be, can you give me a little bit more information on how you would install those or what you're looking at?
Just be framed panels that would be bolted into the supports that are already there. And on top of that, whatever we put to replace that rotting wall there. And something that we can just unscrew and take out in the winter.
So is your patio, because it's going to be concrete, you said?
The pad will be, yeah.
Are you going to have rails of any sort? Because right now it's open.
Yep. I think we would just attach them to could screw them to the concrete.
But it'll be done with concrete. The site will be blocks, so where the
Right.
land is already, so it doesn't run in.
And so these panels would be floor to ceiling, just strictly a
And
screen
floor to
panel that's
ceiling,
going to go.
On that side, if he's allowed to screen it.
Yeah, just right out to where the footings are too. We don't want to go out any farther than that.
The panels, are you talking about screen panels so you can take out then and leave it open in the wintertime?
Yeah.
There's no enclosed wall at all?
No.
It's just that the.
I don't think I'd want to
Rather than have
leave,
it screened and put something up over it, you're doing it such that you can take the screens out.
I don't think I'd want to leave them out in the winter. I think I'd want to pull, I think I would want to pull them out in the winter and keep them from
But some
getting,
people
Take
just
them
cover.
off in the
cover-
winter 'cause
cover
the
them with
wind in there.
plastic or whatever.
yeah.
Some of them do.
This is Mike. This house was, and everything was built by permit, and then the ordinary high water mark changed, and that's why we're here today, because it's in violation based on the change in ordinary high water mark. Is that correct, or am I reading this wrong?
No, the deck on the main level of the home was built without a permit and it extended lakeward from what originally was there.
I understand the previous owners did go through a variance process of trying to control some erosion, putting in a retaining wall down by the shore. They did all of those things and then didn't bring up the deck and went ahead and built that on their own, I guess.
And it was built 4 feet larger than it was supposed to be. So, and they didn't act upon the semicircular 16-foot patio from the variance of 2009.
Is there any sense of how much change there is? Now it indicates, 78 feet, the ordinary high water mark. Do you have any indication what it was before they changed it? It's a fairly level beach. Could it be 10 or 15 feet, the whole sand
Well,
beach?
I live on Beltane, it goes up and down. You know, we, out there, and we had 150 feet of sand beach, and then it can be up to nothing. It gets level in there, and Beltane doesn't drain fast.
At this time, I'm going to go ahead and open for public comment.
When was
And
that?
seeing no public comment, I'm going to close public comment. He's looking at historical
When wa-
footage.
Yeah, when was the house built?
The house was built in
78?
1980.
79?
Yeah,
78 or
77, 77 at a 100-foot ordinary high watermark setback.
At 100 feet?
That is correct.
Okay.
At that time, when before the ordinary high watermark setback changed in 2006. This is Veronica speaking. I'm not opposed to the application. I believe that since the first variance of 2009 from the prior owners did not utilize that 16-foot semicircular platform, that this proposal is a less impervious surface. It has provides that less of an environmental impact. on the lake. The only thing that I would suggest that is the lower level, that 10 foot 5 inch by 32 remain open. No sidewalls constructed. Your screens would be appropriate, but nothing more than the screens. And that's how I see it. And then, of course, if this moves forward, then I would propose another condition being that variance 37V09 becomes, the platform in that variance becomes null and void.
This is Ken. I think I'm in agreement with you that a 10.5-foot deck versus the original 6.5, you know, any kind of disability space is reasonable, giving up the 16-foot platform underneath, and definitely it's only screened in underneath. There's no possibility for any living area that I think I'd be supportive of it.
This is Mike, I'd be in agreement with that.
Okay. If any, then I'm going to make a motion that we approve the after the fact variance and second part of the variance with the lower level as site plan goes, as per site plan, with the conditions. Number one, if this variance is acted upon, the platform in variance 37V09 becomes null and void. And condition number two, the lower level patio, the 10 and 5 inch by 32 lower level patio must remain open and cannot be converted to have fully enclosed side walls, screens only. And then I have findings of facts. Is the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intents of the official controls? Retaining the upper level 10-foot 5 inch by 32 deck and having the lower level concrete patio within the same dimensions will provide less of an environmental impact than the 16-foot semicircle platform from the 2009 variance. And is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by official control? Yes, replacing that lower level wooden lakeside deck with the cement platform with the same dimensions as the upper level and replacing the wooden planter boxes as retaining walls with the same size concrete blocks as you'd mentioned is reasonable. Number three is the need for a variance due to circumstances unique to the property and not created by the current or prior property owners. The house was permitted in 1977 at a 100-foot ordinary high watermark setback. DNR raised the ordinary high watermark in 2006, and in 2009 a variance was approved for a 16-foot semicircular lakeward platform. So to provide usable space than the original upper deck didn't have. The prior owners did not utilize that platform, which is now becomes null and void. So the proposed outcome will have less environmental impervious surface. So the answer was yes. And I will adopt the staff's findings for 4 and 5.
This is Ken, I'll second that.
Okay, there was a motion by myself to approve the application to provide findings of facts for 1, 2, and 3 with the 2 conditions, and Ken seconded. Tim, how do you vote?
As Tim, I vote aye.
Ken, how do you vote?
This is Ken, I vote aye.
Larry, how do you vote?
This is Larry, I vote aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Mike, I vote aye.
And this is Veronica, I vote aye. Your application has been approved. You will receive a decision letter from Environmental Services stating exactly what the conditions are and the next steps for permits.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Variance application 35-V-24 by Kelly Burns. Lot 6, Stillwell Beach, Section 24, Township 144, Range 35, Lake Hattie, Township on Lake Hattie. A recreational development lake, parcel 18.37.00500. The applicant is requesting a variance from Section 506 of the Shoreland Management Ordinance to use an existing dwelling located in the shore impact zone as a guest cottage on a non-conforming lot that does not meet the minimum lot area or width requirements. Okay, could you please state your name and address for the record?
Kelly Burns, 14202 Aspen Avenue Northeast, Prior Lake, Minnesota.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burns. And who do you have with you?
This is my contractor,
Okay, go ahead,
Matt
you may
Berge.
speak.
Matt Berge, 920 Washington Avenue, Bemidji, Minnesota, 56601.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Burns, would you please have you or your contractor go ahead and state your request?
Yeah, I can state it. So I'm assisting Mr. Burns with the variance here. What we're wanting to try to do is have the current cottage or current cabin that he's using classified as a guest cottage. We're aware that the lot is non-conforming, and so we're asking a variance to section 506 that would allow a guest cottage to be on that particular lot, and we're also asking, since the current cottage or the current cabin is very close to the lake, we're asking that the non-conforming condition there also be allowed. One of the things that there's actually a bunkhouse structure that's also there, and Mr. Burns is willing to demolish that particular structure and remove it from the lakeshore.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Burns, you mentioned that you would like to have a residential structure on a different area of the property. How much effort and time, I guess, even with this contractor, where is this proposed future home going to be? Have you discussed that at all, or is it just kind of open air right now?
No, we've discussed that, and when you were out for the site visitation, I kind of indicated where that structure would be. It's when you first come off the road at the high end of the lot.
Have you had septic design or location for that new structure? Have you thought about that? Have you checked into that yet?
I have not checked into that because I figured I would need to get approval to even build before I could do that, and I realized that the current septic would need to be replaced, as that is probably not sufficient to meet the requirements of a year-round structure.
Right, that's kind of where I was going. I wasn't sure if it would meet it or not, or if it could be expanded upon, you know, to fit both structures. That's where I was kind of leading with that.
The sizing of the new septic is unknown, just because we haven't gone through the design process for the new build, so we don't know what we're designing to.
Right, and neither do we. Okay. During our lot views, you mentioned the current cabin had been added on to. What exactly is in this current cabin now? The inside, just.
There's 2 bedrooms, a
Okay.
kitchen, and a bathroom.
And the bathroom was added on when?
Sometime in the spring of 1982, after my grandfather had passed away.
Okay.
And they were the original owners of the property 70 years ago this year.
Okay, and so the septic system was installed in '83, so I imagine that's about for the bathroom then, that was installed.
Right. I think the septic was installed in 82 when that
Okay.
addition was built on.
All right, it showed '83 on the paperwork, so I just wanted to double check. Okay, so this system currently is about 40 years old.
Correct.
Okay,
And it was inspected per the requirements of this application.
What is this, Ken? What's your perspective on the condition of the existing cabin? Not the bunkhouse one. You said that's going to be non-existent. Is it in good shape?
Yes,
Or does it
there's,
need,
there's no
need a lot
walls
of,
caving in, there's no holes in it, so yes, it is in decent shape.
foundation, everything?
It's a
that's
solidly
overseen?
built cabin.
Yeah, I think somebody on your team had said that the wall looked to be crumbling, but It's how the vinyl siding was put on, because there's 3 different structures that were, that cabin, the center part was the original piece. Then they added on to the front, and then the addition on the back. And when they added the addition on the back, when the siding was put on, the person that did the siding wanted the starter strip where the siding attaches. There really wasn't much there to attach to, so it's buckling on that back end. But the walls are intact and not crumbling or deteriorating.
During the lot views, you mentioned with these additions that the floor levels, or something you mentioned was they had different heights.
Right.
Can you give me more information on that?
Well, that front addition, when you step from the kitchen area into that front, which is a living room and a bedroom, there's a 6-inch drop in that floor, so it's not one level. But the kitchen level and the back portion is one level of the flooring.
And then you step down in the front.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so back to my questions on the septic. Since you haven't talked to, you did talk to someone to get the compliance inspection. During that time, did you visit with the septic just about, you didn't ask any questions about expansion room or anything on the septic?
The condition of the variance was a compliance inspection on the existing septic, so that's what we were dealing with.
That's the only thing that you asked for about the septic, though? You didn't at the time say,
Well-
this is why we're proposing this variance application, because we want to build another structure, and...
Well, we're proposing the variance to have the cabin reclassified as a guest cottage,
So that you could build another
so
structure.
we can build another structure, yeah.
Okay.
We have not engaged in any design on the new home, so it's premature for me to have a conversation with a septic designer, because I don't have the information.
Currently, is it the current drain field septic system is sized for a 2-bedroom cabin? That's what you have, the current, okay. If you build a house and you kept this cabin, is it likely that your current drain field, SSTS, is inadequate size-wise?
That's probably doubtful.
Yeah.
I'm sure the septic will need to be updated.
Because that brings into question then a primary and secondary
Correct.
drain field.
Right.
I'd be concerned that if you kept that cabin, you would not be able to have space for your drain field. I don't know, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, I don't know the square footage that's gonna be required for the drain field, but up by the road, there is, I think, some area that would accommodate a secondary drain field. I don't know that 100% because of the design isn't done, but, and then the existing location of the current septic is fairly sizable. So I think that would accommodate the primary septic design. It obviously have to be updated, probably updated legal tank with the changes that are required there.
What does that tell you, Tim? Number 2, what does that tell you?
Well, I had questions on the septic as well. This is the compliance report that says you have the rock seepage bed. And I had questions because the permit said it had lateral lines. So are the lateral lines in the in this rock bed then? Is that what we determined? It was just hard for me to tell when I looked at your permit for the septic.
Yeah, it looked like there was 2 different descriptions, but it's
But it's still
essentially
all
the same thing.
Same as one, okay.
We do public comment.
Okay, well,
Should we
no, not yet.
do it, and then
Okay.
let's,
Yep. At this time, I'm gonna get open for public comment. Okay. Okay, if you could please state your name and address for the record and go ahead and log in on the document there as well, please.
Janice Schwartz, 42254 Quiet Trail, LaPorte, Minnesota. I just want to say that my husband and I purchased our property in '88, and we've been neighbors of the Burns family since then, so we've known them all. And I'd be very much in favor of them keeping the cabinet, the existing cabin for a visitor's cabin or summer cabin. And I've known Kelly's mother, drank many cups of coffee with her, and I know it would mean the world to her if that cabin could remain. And she's got many, many family memories there. So I'm all in favor of Kelly keeping the cabin and building the new house. And he's very helpful to my husband and I.
Thank you, Mrs. Schwartz. Anybody else have public comment? Okay, you want to give public comment, you can right after her and hop up there and.
oh, maybe.
Yep, just please again, state your name and address and then go ahead and write it on the log, please.
Tom Schwartz, 42254 Quiet Trail. One comment, you're talking about the septic. If they were to put a new septic in for the new house, the other one would be plenty, because the kids, you know, that'd be coming maybe half a dozen times a year. So that wouldn't be any hassle, as long as you had a new one for the new place.
Anything else, sir?
Jim, how are you?
Good.
Yep. You know it a lot.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Anybody else have public comment? Okay, no more public comment. I will close the public comment.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
this is Mike. This board, I believe, has been fairly consistent in not allowing guest cabins to be built on substandard lots. This is a reverse request, but I see no difference in that. So based on that we're considerably short of the square footage and the lot width. If this existing cabin were not next to the lake and they wanted to build a guest cabin, we would not allow that. So I don't see how we can do that, so I'm opposed to this application.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
This is Ken. I'm in the same page, I think, as Mike. The lot's definitely undersized, both in area and width, and the structures in the shore impact zone. All those things have been no-goes as we've been trying to be consistent with property for guest cabins, and so I would not be in favor of allowing this to remain.
Okay, thank you, Ken. This is Veronica speaking. I concur with my colleagues. I was trying to get information, as far as the septic and stuff, because also when I look ahead into the future, I need to keep in mind on where, your septic would be, where the alternate sites would be, where the primary dwelling would be. And because this is a smaller lot, those play a large hand in those answers. I agree, allowing a guest cottage to remain at a 28-foot ordinary high water mark setback is definitely not the usual.
This is Ken. I'm prepared to make a motion if you're ready.
Go right ahead, Ken.
I make a motion that we deny variance request 35V24, for all the reasons stated, except the staff's findings of fact for this variance.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Anybody care for a second?
This is Mike, I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Ken to deny the application, adopt the staff's findings of fact, second by Mike. Tim, how do you vote?
This is Tim, I vote aye.
Ken, how do you vote?
This is Ken, I vote aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
This is Mike, I vote aye.
Larry, how do you vote?
Larry, I vote aye.
And this is Veronica, I vote aye as well. A decision letter will be mailed to you regarding the application, and if you have any questions, you can please direct them to Environmental Services Office.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, 36-V-24 by Peck LLC, Lot 9, Block 1, Ratkeys Addition, Section 36, Township 139, Range 34, Hubbard Township on Duck Lake, a recreational development lake, parcel 14.55.00900. The applicant is requesting a variance from Section 704 of the Shoreland Management Ordinance to make an unimproved lot not created in compliance with the official controls in effect at the time and that does not meet the required 100-foot minimum lot width at the ordinary high water mark or at the 100-foot ordinary high water mark setback into an improved lot. Okay, if you could please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Tyler Eastrom, 1905 16.5 Street South in Fargo, North Dakota.
Thank you, Tyler, and Mr. Hacker for the record.
David Hacker with Backhoe Pete, 57125 County Highway 40 in Monaga.
Okay, thank you. Tyler, go ahead and give us a little description of your request.
In the process of having a holding tank put in to eventually have a working bathroom in our cabin, we were informed that the Shoreline Ordinance 704 would prohibit that because our lot is just a little bit too narrow at the ordinary high water mark.
Okay. Tyler, when did you purchase this property?
September of 2023.
Okay. What are your intentions of this property?
It's just a vacation cabin, so it's myself and college friends that have fished Duck Lake for years. So.
Mm-hmm. So you still intend for it to be seasonal only?
It's insulated and heated. It gets used throughout the year.
Do I have any questions from the board members?
As I recall from that, you do not have a well or
There's no
water in the system.
No.
And so you just fill that tank
Yep, I've just been
with
bringing water
to
from
use-
home.
To use for restroom facility,
Yep.
hopefully.
Well, there's a composting toilet in the cabin. That's all there is for a bathroom facility.
This is Veronica. Are you going to have a well drilled?
So my parents are one door over from ours, and we don't drink their well water, so we don't intend on drilling a well. And given our rate of usage, it's a minor inconvenience for us.
It's kind of like a guest cabin. I don't have a problem.
If there are not any questions at this time, I'm going to go ahead and open for public comment. And seeing no public comment, I close public comment. I definitely see that moving forward, improving the lot is a plus. What are your intentions of the cabin as far as, I know you're wanting to add this bathroom facility and such, but what do you foresee in the future as far as for you and the 4 owners? How do you plan on using it? I mean,
It'll be weekend use. We average somebody's there about every other weekend.
and what about, I mean, how many bedrooms does it have currently?
2 bedrooms.
And I mean, do you foresee like any expansions? Have you talked about that?
We have, and no.
What about, it has a deck on the side already, correct?
Yep.
So the issues here is the cabin's 60 feet from the lake, so it isn't in the setback. There is room for 2 SSTS drain fields on the property. In terms of the criteria for allowing it to be an approved lot, that's okay. It's undersized. Cabin's been there for years. It would seem to me that approving this would be okay, with some kind of constraint on expansion. You know, whether we would like to say, no, it's gotta stay a seasonal small cabin, and can't be enlarged, or set some limit on how, maybe, you could expand 400 square feet more if they wanted, or something like that. That's kind of where I'm coming from.
This is Mike. I believe the applicant said that it is insulated and able to use year-round now?
Correct, yeah.
Oh, it is used year-round. Oh, okay. A seasonal year-round cabin then?
Just 4 seasons.
This is Mike. I think I can see the need for this. This was created by the state of Minnesota in their process of lease lots and selling them off. And it has a long history of substandard, and to make this an improved lot, I'm okay with that, but I do believe we need some restriction on future expansion. But I'm wondering if the way to do that is a percent. I don't know what the square footage is now.
It's about 800, just slightly under 800.
And I understand your concerns, Mike. I understand the thought there, but because it's in the 60-foot, ordinary high watermark setback, they can't expand anyway
think we're
without a
past.
variance. Correct, Eric? Or do they have some, they can expand without the variance? Because we're not in the shore impact zone, is that why? Okay. Okay, so,
This is Larry, it would be by permit though, correct?
Yeah, we can't just willy-nilly start.
Yes.
And there's no restriction though on how much the addition can be?
It'd be limited that it couldn't go any closer to the lake. They'd have to meet the side lot setbacks, and they couldn't exceed the 25% impervious threshold, so those are the parameters.
I guess I would be okay with the existing parameters that are there.
I'm sorry,
I'd be okay with what the existing parameters on what can be done with expansion. I wouldn't put any, I'm okay with not putting
in other words,
additional
if they want to do
conditions.
it, come in for a permit or come in for a variance or whatever, because it's outside the shore impact zone.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
the only concern that I would have is if they wanted to come in and I guess they would have to change the septic possibly. What if they wanted to come in and tear it down and rebuild an entirely new
Point is there-
25-foot structure?
Point is, there's room for the 2 drain fields. That's the big criteria, right?
Yeah,
They'd still need to be,
yeah,
get the permits.
yeah, so I'm okay with that,
Did we do public comment?
yes.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
This is Mike. I make the motion that we approve variance 36V-24 and accept the staff findings of fact.
This is Ken, I'll second that.
We have a motion by Mike to approve the application as presented, a second by Ken. Tim, how do you vote?
This is Tim, I vote aye.
Ken, how do you vote?
This is Ken, I vote aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
It's Mike, I vote aye.
Larry, how do you vote?
Larry, I vote aye.
And this is Veronica, I vote aye. Your application has been approved. You'll receive a decision letter in the mail from Environmental Services Office, and you'll still need to get possibly any permits and such, so.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, next item on the agenda, 37-B-24 by Richard Thulin, Lot 3, and the south half of Lot 2, Block 1, Summer Mountain Estates, Section 26, Township 141, Range 34, Lake Emma Township on Little Sand Lake, a recreational development lake, parcel 16.71.00300. The applicant is requesting a variance from Section 507.2 of the Shoreland Management Ordinance to place a mechanical lift on the property as a means of lake access and retain the existing stairway lake access. Okay, thank you, Mr. Tulane.
Yeah.
Thulane or Tulane?
Rich Thulane,
Tulane, okay. Yes, if you could please state your address as well.
23729 Glory Trail,
Perfect.
Park Rapids, and it's Big Sand Lake.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, not Little Sand, just, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Clerical error
Yep.
in the notice.
Perfect. On Big Sand Lake, perfect. Thank you for that. And go ahead and give us a brief description of your request.
Okay, so I'm requesting a hillside lift. We have 80 stairs down to the lake. We have about 45 feet of elevation. And this lift would run down the bluff 90 feet. And so the reason for the request is just to make it easier to bring things up and down from the lake and potentially would be safer.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from the members? No, okay. I'm going to go ahead and open for public comment. And seeing none, for the record, I'll close public comment. This application seems very typical and necessary with this long bluff here that we have. 57.7% slope, 56 feet of rise. I'm content with the location that the applicant has provided. We talked during the lot views about the entrance and exit area, that you'll most likely be able to just step off at the top. You may need some type of system down at the bottom, which we discussed. You're welcome to, make sure you contact Environmental Services, and whatever you provide down there does not exceed the 4 feet in width, if it's a sidewalk sort of thing or a boardwalk or anything like that.
There'll probably be a landing portion, just a level portion. These lifts are always higher, even though ours looks like it would come pretty close to the ground. Because the rail is at an angle, it's usually and the car sits on top of the track, it's about a foot above the ground on one side and about 3 feet or 3.5 feet on the other side. So typically, it's gonna need some sort of a ramp coming down.
Sure, yep, and the carriage is still going to be level, though. The carriage is not going to be tilted. The carriage will be
carriage is
level. Yep. so-
Track goes this way, so
Yep.
You have this gap.
Yeah, so you just wanted to have something, just whatever you showed us some pictures that you had from neighboring properties from theirs. And so I just wanted to be sure to clarify with you that whatever you choose to decide, make sure that it fits within the shore management ordinance, that it fits so you don't have to have any permits and such. Or if you need one, then you need to contact them. But if you fit within those requirements, you should be fine. I think, again, placing this lift along the stairways in that existing opening in the bluff, so the other people can utilize the stairs or continue for the continued access or utilize the lift, so I'm in favor.
Yeah, it's a very steep bluff.
Yes,
And
87
we've
or 97 steps, something.
At my age, I can appreciate that. And I think we've been pretty consistent in allowing these mechanical lifts on these steep bluffs.
Yep.
And there's nothing unusual about this one, so I'd be in favor of it.
Same here.
In fact, I'm prepared to make a motion if
Go
you
ahead.
want. Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve application 37V24 by Richard Solien and accept the findings of fact from the staff.
This is Larry, I second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Ken to approve the variance application as site plan, second by Larry, and adopting the staff's findings of facts. Tim, how do you vote?
This is Tim, I vote aye.
Ken, how do you vote?
This is Ken, I vote aye.
Larry, how do you vote?
This is Larry, I vote aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Mike, I vote aye.
And this is Veronica, I vote aye. Your application has been approved.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, let's see. Next item is 38-B-24 by Cole and Katie Hagen? Hagen, okay.
Yes.
Lot 2, Block 2, Lily Pad Landing, Section 1, Township 142, Range 32, Steamboat River Township on Benedict Lake, a recreational development lake. Parcel 24.44.00200. The applicants are requesting a variance from Section 502.2 of the Shoreland Management Ordinance and Article, I'm bad with Roman numerals, so Section 1.03 of the Subsurface Sewage Treatment System Ordinance from the required 150-foot ordinary high water mark drain field setback, and the requirement that lots created after January 23rd, 1996 must have 2 Type 1 septic system sites. If you could please state your name and address.
Cole Hagan, 13915 Orchard Road in Minnetonka, Minnesota.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hagan, and go ahead and tell us a little bit more about your request here.
I have room for a type 1 septic system if I have a variance to approve that. I have a septic design in place already that looks like it will work well. I also need a variance for the secondary system to be a type 3 system, holding tank. Otherwise, the structure that we're proposing to build would conform to the lot if the septic was approved.
So, this is Veronica speaking, so it looks like a lot of your constraints are wetlands?
Yes.
Okay. During our lot views, the house was staked out. Where's the driveway entrance gonna be if the garage is attached?
So it's going to actually, originally we were gonna move it to the far end. Now it's gonna stay where it's at, but open up a little wider, so you would just pull into the back of that house.
So you're gonna come in straight, or are you gonna come in
That's
off
kind of
to
where
the
that
side?
driveway is right now, where the garage is.
Mhm.
We'll have to clear a little bit further in there, and then maybe a parking spot on the side. And I think Ed, the septic designer's plot shows a little bit better there.
Right, everything was staked out, and it showed us how far you were going to be away from the drain field and such
Right.
like that.
Now, of course, I can't pull it up.
It's okay. We have some
Oh, you have
stuff
septic
here,
design, okay.
yeah.
There you go, I
Yeah.
think that shows that pretty well.
Okay. So I see some room at the front of the house towards the lake. And I'm imagining, did you save that room for maybe a lakeside deck?
Yes, a small deck if possible, and again, you know, we want to keep that easement accessible for, there's a property on each side. I do believe we have a little bit of room to move the whole thing back a little if need be, but I do think we have enough room for a small deck, and that's all we would need.
My concern was more if you needed to move it forward a little bit to get a car past to get into the garage area.
Well, it's kind of an odd angle too,
Yeah.
so there's definitely some tree work that needs to be done there, but I do believe it's doable.
It looked like there might be some challenges for parking because of that road being so close to that garage there.
Right. And that's something that we're definitely willing to flex on. We kind of started here, and that's why we have the septic system. We're more looking to get approved for a build and kind of take it back from there. This is as large as we would go. If we need to go smaller or move the garage, that is an option as well, to provide some kind of parking. Again, it's not a huge lot. It's gonna be by use for my young son and my wife and I on the weekends, so we're not gonna have big gatherings or anything like that there. So, you know, if the two of us can pull into that garage and have a little spot off to the side, that's all we need.
Tim, 50 feet, right? You have to have your well from your drain field, is that right? 50
Yes.
50 feet? So
Correct.
So he has no choice but to put that well over where he's got it located there.
Correct. And to have good access for it.
Yeah.
For maintenance.
I remember there was a berm along where that dotted line is, basically a big berm. You could cut through that berm to get into the garage.
That's where we kind of plan on leveling and clearing a little further.
I don't have a big problem.
It's a tricky lot, and it's taken a lot of eyes and a lot of back and forth to get this far, so I'm hoping we can come up with something that'll work.
You know, the issue, it's a large lot, almost
It
double
is an
size.
actual,
It's
you know-
needed, 300 some feet of lake frontage, lots of vegetation in front.
Yes.
Basically, the constraints are the wetlands around it, that force them into the configuration.
And then everything that is there, I've been in contact with the office, and everything that's existing on site will be removed prior to any further building. That was all on the property when we purchased it.
Eric, any observations that you made when you were there? You indicated in the staff report that you maybe needed to see to make any kind of judgment, any observations different than what we have?
The board's already said one of the items I'd say would be just having room to pull off the road and park a vehicle that's not immediately in the garage. And the other would be making sure there's enough room to get around the house to do work on the septic system if you ever need to.
Certainly, yes. So we'll have to get a little creative with how all this is finally gonna sit, and I assume, you know, we'll discuss that as we're continuing into the permitting process, but.
Well, when I pulled in here,
Yeah.
I asked them, I talked about that road.
You don't have a lot of room before you hit the 100-foot setback point, right?
How many feet do you have from the front of the house to that 100-foot setback?
To the 100-foot or the 150?
100 for the structure.
Oh, is that? Let me see what I got here.
28 feet?
Something like that, yes.
Thought it was kind of marked out. It
Right
was
there.
Yeah.
fairly close.
28.
28 feet?
I think that's what it says, yes.
That's correct.
Wait a minute.
So he had
Oh,
quite a
yeah,
bit of room,
okay, there
that's
we
why
go.
we talked
Yeah,
about
okay, there you go. Yeah.
moving forward a little bit if he needed.
So why wouldn't you want to move that closer to the lake so you have more room from the road?
I think I will. Again, the building structure itself, not set in stone, can move, and, you know, my attempt, I guess, is to get the septic variance passed to allow me to build anything. So it certainly can move forward.
Make sure you leave your space for a deck if you want one.
That's right, yeah. That's right.
This is Mike. I think I'm in favor of this. It looks, based on the size of the lot, even though there's wetlands, and I would encourage that we allow ample space to get off the road, but there certainly appears you could put a 12-foot deck on that and still have considerable amount of flexibility in that and staying behind the setback. So I'm in favor of this application.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I just wanted to point out to the applicant that part of our application process here and approving what we see, we also go by the site plan that you've provided here.
Sure.
And so, and all the measurements and making
Right.
sure you keep, so.
I understand.
If changes are made, they would definitely have to be, you know, in favor of reducing or moving over to improve those setbacks and not go any closer. 'Cause
Correct.
that's part of our, you know, this process itself is what we approve is what we see, you know? And obviously, if you can make those changes and still be within the setbacks, then that would be, you know, a possibility. But just wanted to make sure that that's where we're,
This all kind of came hitting us in the face quick. We had a good opportunity to buy a lot on a lake actually across from my folks. Very rare that they come up on that lake. And then as we started to learn more about the lot and what we were going to build and how we are going to go about it, it all came kind of crashing down to this and needing the variance for the septic. And we do want to comply with everything and make sure we're, you know, doing everything correctly. And that's kind of, you know, where we landed here. If it does need to shrink in size or I do need to amend this, I'm happy to do so. I do think that the way this is marked out on the lot, we can make that work as well, to access parking the garage and servicing the septic system.
You could move that well closer to the property line too, couldn't you?
okay, well, at this time, I'm gonna go ahead and open for public comment.
You could move it over and towards the house a little bit, and that would leave him room to come in off of there.
And you're saying as long as I'm within the setbacks that I have marked out, and that's on the building application, that'd be okay?
Right, because what we're looking at, so let me close public comment, because I don't
Oh, I'm
see it.
sorry.
No, it's okay, close public comment. So basically, like I said, your variance application was for the septic.
Correct.
And so, and making sure that you had those two spots, which you don't have two, you have the type 1 and the type 3.
Yes.
And so, basically, we're approving that you have those spots, so that whatever you build has to fit within those parameters to retain those spots,
Okay, yeah,
correct?
yes.
The septic system,
Well,
and then when they come in for a permit. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
but the site plan as well. Go ahead, Eric, please.
Yeah, the septic system is the main part of the
Correct.
thrust of the application, but you could put a condition that would address what type of home, size, location to safeguard the septic
Okay,
location if you needed to.
so, okay. So basically, to safeguard the application, it could be as site plan or reduced structure, reduced size? Yes, maybe no?
Or could we just state that the septic is built as
Yeah. if you-
designed, and then any future building, he'd have to get a permit, he'd have to fit in with whatever the parameters are based on that septic system.
Yeah, if you do it that way, then it pretty much, you don't have a whole lot of room in which to work and
Right.
they know
I can't go and say I'm gonna
setbacks.
build a 10-bedroom house and you say we got a septic system for a, right, it's gonna,
Well, and that also allows him then, when he comes in for his building permit, to, you know, say, yeah, I decided to move it this way and put the well here, or whatever that happens to be, without any conditions.
as
on
long
it.
as the septic is appropriate for the structure.
Yep.
Side setbacks, lake setbacks, septic. Okay.
Madam Chair, I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Go ahead.
I make the motion that we approve application 38V-24, and that the septic system be built as plans submitted, as the diagrams permitted. And for the findings of fact, number 1 is the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls. I say yes, the lot is very large, but due to wetland restraints, it limits the ability to do septic, but there is a primary septic site and a secondary backup plan.
I'll just add to that being that it's sandy soils and the soils are printing, it's a good candidate for a type 3, for an alternate.
For the alternate. Is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by an official control? Yes, having a season, or a home built on a lot this size is reasonable. And except number 3, staff findings. Number 4, will the issuance of the variance maintain the essential character of the locality? Yes, the house is well set back from the lake, and there's good coverage, screen coverage between lots, timber coverage, so it fits in with the character, and accept number 5, staff findings of fact.
This is Tim, I'll second.
Okay, we had a motion by Mike to approve the application with a specific site plan for the septic. And he created findings of facts for 1, 2, and 4, adopted 3 and 5. A second by Tim. Tim, how do you vote?
Tim, I vote aye.
Ken, how do you vote?
Can I vote aye?
Larry, how do you vote?
This is Larry, I vote aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
Mike, I vote aye.
And this is Veronica, I vote aye. Your application has been approved. You'll receive a letter from Environmental Services Office for the next steps. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for staying late.
Okay, next item, miscellaneous or communications.
Hurry up, because I gotta pee. I outlasted 2 of my compatriots.
Pretty good for the old guys.
For those of you that indicated being able to attend the land use training this fall, I've got you registered. You might have received emails
I did, yeah.
confirming that. And the deadline for August is next Monday, so I don't have a good sense of what the agenda will look like yet. So everybody waits until deadline day to turn things in, so.
But we will have some.
Be small, we'll have some.
One table.
Okay.
That's what I've got.
Okay, any other communications?
So Mike, I make the motion to adjourn.
This is Tim, I'll second.
Okay, Mike made a motion to adjourn. Tim seconded. Mike, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Larry, how do you vote?
Larry, I vote aye.
Tim, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Vote aye.
Ken, how do you vote?
You know, when he says.
Veronica, I vote aye.
Okay.
5, go ahead, motion to adjourn. has been
Mixing
made.
it up and making us pay attention.
Yes,
Yeah.
I am, I'm mixing them up.